The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
the top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
What is going on, you guys? Welcome to another Tuesday night, another Beyond Wednesday's Industry of Comics show. And we've got a fun show tonight. Episode 100 of the Industry of Comics show. And kind of crazy. 100 episodes, gentlemen. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Holy shit, 100?
Yeah.
You know what? You know what's funny though? Here's what's funny. So I looked behind me, and I've had this book since January 25th, 1983. This is my very first comic book. But do you see what he says? He says, "Bid tomorrow, goodbye." As a live streamer, right? People bid with me, and they get goodbyes. So what a great connection, right? Holy full circle. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Something
I
like
can
that.
only hear Jesse, by the way.
You need to leave and come back. There's something wrong. You can't hear Emmett. Leave and come back. Tell him to leave and come back, Jesse.
Come back. Go out and come back in.
Yep.
Okay.
So, very interesting StreamYard issues lately where people, if they leave and come back while other people are on, they can't hear each other, which is very weird. But all after StreamYard was bought out by a different company. Yeah, I wonder how that's kind of interesting how that works, huh?
Wow. When did that happen?
Yeah, it's been happening in the last couple months. StreamYard was bought out by a European company. We talked about it on the industry show about.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. How's that, Dennis? Can you hear everybody now?
I can hear everybody now. Yes.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So tonight's episode, you guys, is about fandom, how important fandom is in the industry. Literally, in my opinion, I think literally it's the engine that kind of keeps everything going. Obviously, fandom for a character is where we start. Spider-Man, Batman, Superman. We fall in love with these characters at a young age, and we follow the characters. And then after the years we get older, we start recognizing certain artists that we love drawing the character. We recognize certain writers that we love that write the character better than certain other writers. And then we start following and being fans of creators. And it's very interesting how that has changed over the past 20 years, especially, in my opinion, to where now the creators are calling the shots in a major way. It's kind of this ebb and flow. And now more than ever, the creators are the ones who have the power, in my opinion, with how easy it is to jump on a live selling platform and sell your product, how easy it is to get your own comic book printed and crowdfunded through some type of Kickstarter brand. It is the fandom that is fueling this industry, and we're going to talk about it tonight. Swornfest was this weekend. I got to witness Swornfest for the second time. It was a lot of fun. We're going to talk about that. But first, we have a special guest to bring on the show, and I'm going to let Dennis introduce our special guest.
So I know it's going to be a shock to the audience, but when I first met this man, we were confrontational. And then as I grew to know what this guy's importance in the industry was, and I started hearing other things that he was talking about, I realized that in a way, he was almost as stifled in this industry as I was feeling as a retailer. Since he's gone on, he is forging a path that a man of his age would not normally do. And he's had so much history behind him that it has to make sense for him. And I can't wait to hear what his plans are for this. So without further ado, Bill Schanes, comic book legend.
Bill.
Let's not go quite that far.
You're a legend, Bill.
Yeah.
Bill, thanks for joining us, man. Bill, let's for all those people that might not know who Bill Schanes is, let us know, how did you get started in the industry of comic books, Bill?
Sure. Just so whoever's listening knows, I talk very, very fast. Sometimes I mumble. I speak English, but I have good stories to tell. So when I was very young, I had a very bad case of dyslexia, and I dropped out of school on second grade and third grade and went to a special education school for 2 years. And the special education school back then special ed was not special ed. It was called a torture chamber because for 2 years, their technique was to put a wooden box over my head with a slit where the eyes could see out. And I held a pen flashlight to focus on one letter at a time, not one word, but one letter at a time, so my eyes could connect my mind to the one letter.
Yep.
I did that for 2 years. My mother was a special ed teacher, and she wrote to Dr. Spock, who kind of coined the phrase dyslexia before it was dyslexia, and said, he's not stupid, something's wrong, his eyes aren't connected with his brain. She fought for me. Jumping forward a few years, my brother Steve was 17, I was 13 at the time. We would go to a local swap meet every Sunday, and we drove our bicycles because we couldn't drive. And so I had the old-fashioned banana bike with the big banana seat.
Oh yeah.
And in my days, I hooked up so I could have a surfboard on one side and hold a basketball on the other side, because that's what I did as a 13-year-old, played basketball and surfed. At this one swap we went to, this lady had a surfer van, and there were comics sprawled all over the concrete, and then there's boxes and boxes inside the van. Well, I couldn't read worth crap. No reading ability at all. So I sat down and I started reading the comic book. I realized, oh, there's a story here. I didn't realize reading meant you could read a story. I had no concept. And I read a couple books, and the lady's like, you gonna buy anything, kid? I'm like, well, hold on a second. I'm enjoying this book. Don't bug me. And then we asked, well, how much do you want for them all? And she said it was about 900 comic books, and she wanted $50, so less than 10 cents each, because they were all 10 centers back then. And so we said, well, we don't have $50, we're 13 and 17, but if you give me 1 hour, that'll give me 45 minutes to bicycle back and forth to my parents' house, ask my money to loan me $50, and then if you say yes, she'll bring the old panel wagon down to pick the books up. So, long story relatively short, she said yes, drove our bikes home, my mom drove back, gave them the $50. We bought these 900 comic books. We didn't know what they were. I've never seen one before. So as we're unloading them at our house, my very best friend of a couple of years in San Diego comes by and says, hey, how much do you want for the FF number 2? I said, what the hell are you talking about? What's an FF and what's a number 2? No clue. Well, it stands for Fantastic Four. It says, what does that mean? I mean, it's like elementary stuff for us educated collectors now. And I said, what does number 2 mean? It means it's the second book in the series. Oh, that is interesting stuff. So I said, well, I don't know what's worth. I just paid like 7 cents for them. Is it worth more than that? I don't know. And he goes, well, I'll pay you $38.
Wow.
Literally on the spot, $38.
Game changer.
So I'm saying, let's see, $50 for 900. Now, $12 for $8.99. I can make this work because dyslexics tend to be very difficult with language, but are excellent with numbers. And so I said, well, do you have other friends that like comics? Because I got a whole bunch of them. In fact, there's this thing called Golden State Comic Book Convention before San Diego Comic-Con was named.
Yep.
And there's hundreds of collectors located in San Diego. I'm like, well, how do I get them over to my house to buy my stuff? Because I got the stuff to sell, and I got 8 or 99 comics left for $12. I can make money doing this. So the next weekend, about 20 kids showed up all riding bicycles and just dropped it all over the street in front of my parents' driveway. I think I sold like $1,200 worth of comics that first weekend.
Oh my God.
Wow.
My only stipulation was whatever you bought, I had to read it first before we could take it home.
Yeah.
I discovered the Overstreet Price Guide at that year's Comic-Con in 1971, but I didn't know about pricing before. I didn't know any artists. I didn't know anything about what was inside the book I didn't know the name of the publishers, Marvel, DC, Dell, Harvey, didn't know any of that stuff. So in that original collection, which was all from the 40s, 50s, and late through the late 60s, because I bought it in 71, 900 comics, only one copy of each. I didn't know about grading. I'm assuming they were all, in old school fashion before the grading guides came out, like a VG, maybe a couple of fine copies. And then I realized that in that first year, we sold about $20,000 worth of comics out of that one collection, not knowing what any of them were worth, but people just make an offer.
Right, sure.
So I had, as a 13-year-old with my brother, like 12, 15 grand cash, but we probably got creamed on pricing.
Yeah, but you found your calling, you found your niche,
Right.
you found your tribe, you found your fellowship, and I'm thinking everything changed from beyond that point, huh?
Right. It did, and then the guy who bought the FF #2 from me said, well, there's this committee called the Comic-Con Committee. Why don't you come to one of the committee meetings? Maybe you can become a member. So shortly after, my brother and I joined the committee. My brother was co-chair for the second and third year, I believe. And I was the Huckster Room coordinator, which was later called a dealer's room, which was later called an exhibition hall.
Wow.
So back then I was wrestling with about 25 dealers. There was no company signs, just people on tables, laying out books. Plastic bags were relatively new back then. There wasn't really a concept. There was no backing boards, and there was no comic book boxes. So it was just people putting books on piles of paper.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And so at 15, I was in charge of the Huckster's Room. And all the people we met, oh, by the way, I should say that at that first Comic-Con I went to in 71, there was only a handful of tables. Most people went for the old movies and meeting 4 or 5 celebrities. And Jack Kirby was an institution of the early shows. And when I went in the Huckster's Room, the first booth I walked up to was a guy named Bud Plant.
Oh, wow.
Who I never heard, I didn't know who that was. He was some really, really old guy, like 18 years old, a really old guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, that guy's old. But he had all these unusual publications, none of which I bought in my collection.
Was he dealing in undergrounds at that time?
He was, but he had a lot of things called fanzines.
Oh.
But back then, fanzines were really fan magazines that were on typewriters and oftentimes on mimeograph paper, like the old school machines.
Hey, real quick, Dennis.
And
hold on, Bill. Real quick, Dennis. Every time that you move around, your headset catches on your stuff. Okay, keep going, Bill.
So anyway, I met Bud at that show. We became, good casual friends. The Hucksters weren't very happy with me because you have this 15-year-old telling them, no, you can't have that space, you have to have that space, and so on.
Yeah.
So jumping forward a few years, we opened up a store in 1973 because there were so many people coming to our house. My parents were getting pretty pissed off. Like on some weekends, we'd have 30 or 40 people come. We had a swimming pool. Our house was for San Diego. They bought it in 1964 when real estate was dirt cheap. So it was $18,000 for a 6-bedroom house.
Wow.
And so we had 3 bedrooms full from floor to ceiling of comic books. I was a buying machine, but less aggressive selling. Anyway, jumping forward, my parents said, look, this is out of control. You got to get the stuff out of here. So we opened up a store in Pacific Beach, thus the name Pacific Comics. About 2 miles or a 2-mile bike ride from my house to the store. It was $200 rent, about 1,000 square feet. And our grand opening, we had, Jeff Gelb there, a pretty famous DJ, an authoritative historian in comics. A lot of famous cartoonists lived in the area. They were first customers. And then that store did very well. We opened the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We had trouble getting new comics. So we started buying from Suling early on. We were account number 13. Phil and Bud Plant basically created the entire direct market under themselves. That's Bud and Ann Hutchinson on your screen right now. So Phil is the creator of Breaking Into Marvel and DC, and Bud was the fanzine and underground comics guy on the West Coast. And together, those guys are our business founding fathers. There's no one's in the same league as those two guys. We came a few years later, but anyone says anything else, they're just not right.
Yeah.
So we opened up the first stores. So go ahead.
Well, I was
You are forgetting about Detroit's accomplishments in this.
Bring them on.
So you have Jerry Bales in Detroit, and you have
Shell
Dorf, and Shell moved out to San Diego to help because he had 5 years experience with the Detroit Triple Fanfare.
That's exactly right.
Just making sure Detroit's represented tonight, Bill.
I'm with you. And I put Jerry and Shell and a few others in a different category because they were ambassadors, but not in the business of comics.
Very true.
So I have respect for those guys, Don Thompson and Maggie Thompson, and a host of others, the Carter brothers out of Coronado, California. There's a lot of early pioneers. Anyway, so we were buying comics from Phil Sewing. We were buying comics from local ID Distributor, who, when they brought in comics, they were shipped in bundles with metal string ties. So the top copies and bottom copies were always damaged. And then we started buying so many copies for the San Diego County area that 7-Elevens were complaining that they couldn't get any comic books for their newsstands anymore. Because I was buying them all. I knew what day the train or truck would deliver to the local distributor. I'll be waiting for that truck. They'd made me unload the truck for them because I took almost all the comics. So jumping forward, they got mad at me and said, "We don't want to sell you anymore. Just go direct with Marvel and DC." Well, so I called up Saul Harrison at DC at the time, vice president. And you might notice I've got a very low voice, a very gravelly low voice. I've had that since like 6 or 7 years old. So I called Saul Harrison. I said, San Diego Periodicals recommended you. I go direct to you. I want to buy new comics for my 4 stores and for local stores around my Southern California area. How do I do that? And Saul says, look, come to New York, bring a $10,000 cashier's check, and I'll tell you how it works. Well, $10,000 in 1973, 74 is a big, big number.
Fucking A.
Still a pretty big number today, but when you're a teenager, it's obscene.
It was 5 cars back then.
Right. Well, my first car was a Honda car at $950, brand new.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I saved up for a month with my brother. We sold a bunch of stuff. I took a flight to New York, my first plane flight by myself from San Diego. My attire in San Diego was flip-flops, although back then they were called thongs.
Yeah.
Thongs, yep. Zoris. Yep.
Boy, has that meaning changed a lot.
Yeah.
Because many people said I wore thongs every day, which I did, but maybe not the ones you're thinking of nowadays. So I flew to New York. I went to DC's offices, and they were at the 666 building, the Devil's building.
Yep.
And so I always arrived early. So I arrived about a half an hour early, and I was just pacing back and forth. And I dressed up for the meeting. So my first official New York meeting. So I wore tennis shoes. My first time not wearing shorts with strings hanging down. a beat-up polo shirt and like a ratty sweater. And I paced back and forth sweating like a dog. Just crazy, crazy nervous. Because I'd never met a New York business guy before. So I kept asking business guys, they're wearing 3-piece suits walking by me all the time. And I'm saying, gotta wear a watch. What time is it? So about 5 minutes before 10 o'clock meeting, I go inside, take the elevator up, get out the office, and there's the DC offices all decked out with superhero characters. Really cool. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So I said to the receptionist, hey, I'm here for my 10 o'clock meeting with Saul Harrison. She has one of those little switchboards where you press the button, and there's one button per office.
I remember
But it's an intercom system.
Yeah.
So she presses the button. When they click, she presses off the button, and then the guy talks. So she says, Mr. Harrison, Bill Schanes is here for your 10 o'clock meeting. He says, I'll be out in a few minutes. I'm just sitting there. It's like 10, 15 minutes passes and no one comes out. So I don't know how business works. I said to the receptionist, would you mind telling Mr. Harrison I'm still out here? Because maybe he forgot or got busy. So about 5 minutes later, an old guy comes out, like a 35-year-old guy, like a really old guy.
Ancient.
He's looking around the lobby and he goes back inside. I didn't know what he looked like. I didn't know that was Hollis Harrison. I didn't know who it was. Well, now it's 10:30. I'm getting a little upset because I'm an on-time guy. I'm always on time, like always. So I said, call Mr. Harrison back and say I'm out here. If he doesn't want to meet with me, I'm going to go home. So he comes back out. He goes, where is this guy? He goes, I'm right here. He goes, who are you? So I'm Bill Schanes. He goes, you're a freaking kid. I said, well, I said, that's not my fault. You agreed to meet with me. He said, well, I don't think it's going to work out. I said, well, I just threw 3,000 miles to meet with you. He goes, I'm sorry, but it's just not going to work out. I said, well, what do I do with this $10,000 cashier's check? He goes, please come in. And that's literally how we got started with DC. And then that same year, there's a guy named Ed Shukin at Marvel, who's now passed on, so I can tell the story. And I talked to Ed Shukin about buying from Marvel, and he was going to make his first trip to San Diego Comic-Con. So at the old, like 4 convention centers ago, there was a fountain where everyone met for meetings outside the building. And so I said, I'll meet you at the fountain at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we'll go to the restaurant to have some brunch. So I'm wearing a t-shirt, flip-flops, shorts with strings hanging down. I've got a long ponytail. I'm living the early 70s. And he's wearing a 3-piece suit, which is what the New Yorkers wore. So I have never seen him before either, but I said, are you Mr. Harrison? Yes, I'm Bill Schanes. We shake hands. Some small talk. I said, well, I've arranged for us to go to a restaurant right down across the street here. He said, hold on a second. Do you see that woman across the courtyard? He goes, yeah, well, she's really pretty. He goes, yeah, she's gorgeous. He goes, well, can you hold on a second? I said, okay. So he leaves our little get together and walks over to her. I thought he knew her. So he walks over and says, they're chatting. I couldn't hear them, they're too far away. They're chatting. And then I see him take his hotel key out of his pocket and hand it to her. I'm like, what the frick is going on? Like, if he knows her, why is he showing her key? So he comes back and she's like not happening. So he comes back and goes, I didn't get anywhere. I said, I hope not. That's my fiance. So the New York business guy propositioned my fiance right in front of me. Not a good start. So I told him to F off. I don't want to buy Marvel Comics from Marvel. If that's how business is done, I want no part of it. So that was a long story in the early part.
And that's the birth of the direct market, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. We had 4 stores.
And that's when you learned that publishers are always trying to fuck you.
Or your wife.
I'm more diplomatic than Dennis is.
Yeah.
So are you ready to go back to being 13 years old in 1971?
Well, I bet you that collection's worth a couple $100,000, if not more right now.
There you go. Hey, Brian, can you put me on the big screen? So you're the Emperor. I remember this. That is the program for the 1971 Golden State San Diego Comic-Con convention. And that's the welcome letter. So it all started with you.
I'm sure it's written by Sheldorf.
Yeah. There you go. So there's your history starting right there.
That's right. So anyway, so we had 4 stores, we had a distribution company, and then we started some publishing companies. We did portfolios under the Schanes imprint. We did Blue Dolphin Enterprises, which we felt would be a better name for selling books into bookstores versus Pacific Comics. We had Pacific Comics or PC Comics, which was our publishing line. And most people think Jack Kirby was our first effort. We actually had a book called One, O-N-E, as a test pilot in 1979, 2 years in advance, to figure out how to publish a comic book. So we had no idea what we were doing, like everything else we did.
Sacrificial lamb.
Right. It actually ended up being a really good book. It was a Foot Amenity type of book. but really nice stuff. And we learned how to do printing and who the printers were and seller separation and so on. And then we said, well, let's call Gil Kane and do a first book with him. And Gil Kane said, that's great. We created a contract that he liked. But he said, if it's not on the newsstand, I don't want you to publish it. And he had done a book for Bantam Books as a paperback book called Black Hawk. And we wanted to do the new adventures of Black Hawk. But Gil was fixated on newsstands, not comic book stores. So we had to fall back, which is embarrassing to say that out loud, to Jack Kirby.
It's a decent
It's hard to say it out
fallback.
loud, but Jack was not my first choice, which is ridiculous. But we had got to know Jack because we were on the committee for Comic-Con. So we drafted up our contract. We had hired Mike Friedrich, who at the time was working for Marvel and had Star Reach Productions, to help us navigate what creators wanted and needed as rights. Because at that point in time, Marvel and DC were, everything was company owned.
Yep.
And so we asked them, we asked Mike Friedrich, Neil Adams, Bill Schanes, and Frank Miller to give us advice.
Wow.
So, because we knew them at Comic-Con.
Wow.
And they all chimed in, this is really good paragraph, this one's terrible. You know, it was, from our perspective, it was really, really fair to creators. Maybe too fair, but that's okay. It was a deal we did. And you know, we had done sales projections. I'm a numbers guy because I can't read and write. I'm a numbers guy. So I'd done sales projections on what Captain Victory would sell. I thought, you know, we were going to release at $1 cover price when everyone else's books were 50 cents.
Right.
Yep.
And we have no ads because we're brand new. There's no advertisers. So we had to do two things. We had to have a big name creator, and we had to incentivize the distributors to buy our book because we're this nobody from San Diego. So we got Jack Kirby, which is fantastic. And then we said, well, gee, since I'm a distributor of Marvel and DC at that time, and we're buying 50-cent comic books at 20 cents a copy, or 60% off the cover price, I'm going to offer 70% off the cover price, but I'm $1. So for the same handling cost, a distributor bought them at 20 cents and sold them for 25, making a dime, I'm sorry, buys my book at 30 cents and selling for 50 cents, making 20 cents a copy. Twice as much money.
Yep.
For the exact same size book, weight book, same printer, same delivery truck. So I called the 18 distributors back then and said, how many would you be guessing you're buying? And it was about 35, 40,000 copies. That's what I put down my P&L. And my P&L was on a huge piece of paper, about 5 feet long by about 2 feet high, with pencil marks with all kinds of arrows. And the first orders came in 110,000 copies.
Wow.
I mean, because that's the equivalent of 220,000 at 50 cents.
Yeah.
X-Men was selling more and Batman was selling more, but not that much more. And we were a no-name company with Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
And it was clearly Jack Kirby that did the trick with buying into the marketplace by high discount. But the discount was
fandom.
Interesting because
What's
the discount
interesting?
was interesting because the pricing was per book, not across the book, not across the line. So we know they'd buy more number ones, but they buy less number fours.
Yeah.
So their discount was slowly, they'd be incentivized to buy a new series, and then their discounts will come back to rationale later on. So another big book I make was Star Slayer. That's sold 148,000 copies.
Yeah, Mike Grell, Dave Stevens. Real
Right.
quick,
And then,
real
and then
quick,
we,
Bill.
And then we did something ridiculous. We got,
I want to interrupt you real quick. Okay, so
please.
I want to talk because this is where the fandom part of this comes in. And you guys let me know because this is this type of stuff that why I love having this show and I love talking to you guys that have been in this industry for a while. It feels like maybe you were onto something where there wasn't much of the fandom, people putting a spotlight on the fandom of creators at the time, where you're doing that with Pacific Comics. You're putting the fandom back on Jack Kirby. You're putting the fandom back on Bill Sienkiewicz or Dave Stevens. You're putting the fandom on Mike Grell. You're putting the fandom back on a lot of these creators at the time where it wasn't,
Yes.
that wasn't the norm. How was that received across the industry? What was the thought process on
Well, it
that?
was
Where
really, really huge. First of all the West Coast distributors and retailers were super supportive of a West Coast publisher versus a New York publisher. Very supportive. Now, going back to for a brief second, so we did mail order catalogs back then. There was no internet. And our catalogs, I put the catalogs together myself, and I would open every book, count the pages, write down the name of the artists, and name the artists in our catalogs. So if you look at the early Pacific Comics catalogs, you'll see this book, Captain Vickers, is drawn by Jack Kirby, or whatever. In 1977, we did something really stupid, which turned out to be really brilliant, but not because we thought it was brilliant, we thought it was stupid. We called up Frank Frazetta and asked him if we could have the rights to reprint one of his pieces of art. I met Frazetta in 1972 at a World Science Fiction Show in Phoenix, or Tucson, I can't remember which one. And Frank said at that show, if you ever want to do something with me, just call me. And he gave me his number. So 4 or 5 years later, I called. A guy answers the phone and says, I'm looking for Frank Frazetta. He goes, hold on a second. And you hear him shout, Ellie, someone's calling for Frank. And she shouts back, I can hear it loud. Frank, give me the damn phone. Because she doesn't want him. Apparently, Frank had done the original deal with Fairfax Prints.
Oh.
The 24 posters that everyone carried in their stores back then.
Yeah.
And it was a lifetime license with no guarantees.
Oh.
So Ellie took Frank out of the equation on all deals after that. Anyway, so Ellie said, what art do you want? We'll grant you the rights. We want $1,500 for the reprint right, one time. I'm like, holy shit, that's a lot of money. So we picked out a cover we liked. We printed that catalog, and we got about 25 other professionals like Dick Moore, Sergio Aragonis, Mike Royer, a lot of really good guys to donate a piece of artwork. And that catalog was 100 pages long, printed on super thick cardstock, and had a $1 cover price. And we advertised it with a half-page ad inside Marvel and DC, but back then they didn't understand that you couldn't show nudity inside the comics. So the ad ran for 1 or 2 weeks, and then Marvel executives went berserk because you had a nipple showing inside the comics.
All right. Okay. Hold on.
Yeah, we got to get that one.
What books did this run in, Bill? Because we got to know. We got to let the people know.
About 1 or 2 weeks for the Marvel comics.
What I know, but what time period? You have to let me know, because now all these people that are watching this, they want to know so they can find those advertisements.
Find these books.
Yes.
1977.
1977, you guys, Marvel and DC, you're looking for the Pacific Comics advertisement? Is that what they're looking for?
It only appeared in a few books because they didn't publish many books back then.
Right.
And then the ads got pulled and swapped out for more generic stuff.
Wow.
Anyway, so that Frazetta catalog cover, we mailed it out in a generic white envelope. Because I know my mother would not like to see that cover come to my house.
That's like Playboy, right? Putting it in the envelope. Yeah.
For Fandom, that's a Playboy.
Mm-hmm.
So we printed 5,000 up, and then 5,000 more, and then 10,000 more, and we sold over 35,000 catalogs, just catalogs. And what was weird was the fandom back then, no one could write checks because they were all teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're dropping it $1 bill, 4 quarters, 10 dimes, 20 nickels, 100 pennies. We were working partly out of our house, my parents' house still, for our offices, and the mailman hated us because it'd be 300 or 400 letters a day that weighed really heavy, and half the envelopes ripped, so the money wouldn't even be there by the time they arrived. It was so stupid, but that catalog took us from, I don't remember the exact number, let's just say it's $100,000 a month, a year, to $300,000 a year with one catalog effort.
Wow.
So literally the best $1,500 I ever spent, ever, was the Frank Frazetta catalog with the new Egyptian queen on the front cover. It's unbelievable. And that put Pacific Comics mail order on the map in a very big way. So jumping forward, we did the comic books, CC Comics. Our third big release was Ms. Mystic by Neil Adams.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't say it was the best editorial project in the world
Well, and it eventually had a bunch of controversy.
with Mike Nesser, right?
Yeah, which is another Detroit native.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Miss Mystic sold 247,000 copies on initial orders.
Wow.
That's
These
why
are-
I have
these
so
are-
many.
These are exactly right. They sold too many copies.
That's great to hear you say that. To be honest, Bill,
Here's how naive we were.
that is
So-
great to hear somebody say that, to admit that we sold too many copies. We oversaturated the place.
We didn't know that. We were happy to cash the checks.
Amen.
Now, what was weird about it was that the print was huge, but we didn't understand printing. We're still learning. Well, you're printing 4 books at the same time on one press. So Ms. Mystic's on one side of the press printing 242,000 copies. I need to fill up the other 3 slots, or I'm printing blank books before there's something called blank books.
Yeah.
So I said, screw that. I moved some books around. I shipped like Star Slayer 3 and this book, but I was missing one more book. So I called up Scott Shaw, who had done some spot illustrations for us in our catalogs, and said, Scott, I need a book in like a week, a finished book, start to finish. And he's like, okay. I said, and give me in full color, which he had not really been published in full color before. And I said, and I'll drive up and pick it up. But I'm going to be there next Friday. You got to have it all done. And he delivered it. And we sent that book to the printer. So that printed at the same time as Miss Mystic printed. We shipped it to distributors with no orders. So it's called Wild Animals.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because we printed those books basically for free, but there was no solicitation. So really, you see it right there in the middle on the screen.
Right there.
So it was a crazy time. I've always been engaged with the fans. They really bring the heart and soul to the business. I know I do a lot of talking here. I ramble a lot.
No, this is what
but
we want to
without the
hear,
fans
Bill.
and the
This is
creators,
great.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved every single book that was on here. I still have
Yeah.
the Kubert School book.
I was just going
I
to bring
still
that
have
book up.
Silver Star.
Yep.
I still have Elric's. I mean,
But
On
but
and on and
really,
on. I've got all of it.
you were conquering a realm that
Neil
the
Adams
big
Skate
two were
Man.
not doing.
skate.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was the missing piece of the industry at that point.
Hey, Bill, I got to ask, did you get Neil Adams to do Skate Man? Because it sounds like you were into the skate culture early on.
No, he had it in his drawer.
Oh, damn.
It was already done. I said, I sold 247,000 copies of your first book. Whatever else you got, I'm publishing it. There was no editing, Neil. Whatever he turned in, we just printed it. Skate Man is not exactly an intellectual comic book.
No.
No, but it is actually one of those it's almost a mock comic for some retailers. Like I know at least 2 retailers that buy every copy of Skate Man they find just to hoard them.
Yeah.
It's
It's
kind of
almost like Snakes on a Plane.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got a weird cult following.
It's a guilty pleasure.
Well, here's
Now I will say that Bruce Jones and April Campbell, who at the time lived in Kansas City, moved out to Coronado Island, right off the coast of San Diego, not in the Bay of San Diego, and they put together just an amazing line of books for us: Twisted Tales, Alien Worlds,
Yep.
Somerset Homes, and they, Bruce and April contacted the studio guys, Smith, Jones, Bryson. We had the who's who of everybody in our books. It was just amazing.
Well, and you discovered so many new people as well. Like some of these cover artists that you
And Richard
grabbed just to do
Corbin.
these one-offs
Yeah.
became
Well, we had
huge people later.
We had Jeff Darrow's first book. We had Dave
Yep.
Stevens, of course. But again, we were just lucky enough to have them approach us, or we approached them. But the publisher shouldn't get any claim or glamour at all. It should be the creators and the people who support the creators.
So at this time, let me ask you more of a business question. At this
Sure.
time, you had Marvel and DC. Okay, you had Gold Key was still around, but they were kind of the grocery store comics for the most part, right?
Yep.
And Charlton had already gone into the reprint zone era,
Yeah, they were pretty much done.
right? And then where did you fall on that sliding scale as far as publishers go?
Well, you had Archie, of course, and Harvey coming out still.
Yep.
They've never really gone away. So we were number 3 overnight, but in a very small field.
Right.
So being number 3 didn't mean a lot, except we were the independent guys that everyone could say, it's not those effers in New York, it's somebody else.
Yep. That's true.
And our stuff could have swear words.
Yeah.
And our stuff could show partial nudity.
Yep.
And so it was breaking new ground. We weren't undergrounds. We weren't what Mike Friedrich was doing, which is Star Reach Productions, which was called ground level. We were doing New York style, but with underground and ground level tendencies.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's something to be said about this, even though I'm not dismissing your entry into the comic realm, but you kind of stumbled into the comic realm. And
there was no business plan for sure. There was not a business plan.
Right. But you were a comic fan from the second you picked up a book. And that fandom and what that meant to you as a kid who couldn't read. Right. And as you're picking this up and you're understanding that visual media, the medium of comic books, you approached your publishing effort as a fan, whereas at that exact same time, people like Jim Shooter and who's the other kid that came through? I'm blanking on the name and it's killing me. Who else was a kid that started into comics as a fan?
Well, Stan Lee did too, but
Paul Levitz, of course, Paul Levitz was early comics reader.
Paul Levitz, yes.
Right.
So these guys came up, but they went into the system and they got ground up by the system. You found this love from the side and you came up on a different coast, not in that system, and you were able to do things that the traditional fan that grew up in that era couldn't do when they got into the system.
That's true. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's going to totally blow your mind. I mean, ridiculous. So much later on, after Pacific Comics was, going pretty strong, I was talking to my grandmother who lived in New Jersey, and she owned 4 tobacco stands in the 30s and 40s.
Wow.
And you know what she sold? Action number 1 off the stands.
oh my God.
She sold Detective 27 off the stands, Warframe 52 off the stands.
Sure.
I didn't find out until Pacific Comics was almost closed that she was involved in comics.
Wow.
Yeah.
And as we all know, most of the early creators were Jewish.
Yeah.
And most of the early publishers were Jewish.
Yep.
Now, I was raised as a Catholic, but my father's side was Jewish. My mother's side was Catholic. My mother was a gorgeous woman, stunning. My father wasn't stupid. And so when both sides got introduced to the other member, the Catholic side said, he's a handsome young man, welcome to the family. The Jewish side said, if he doesn't become Jewish, we don't want anything to do with him. Thus, we were raised Catholic. But out of the blue, probably 15 years ago, Paul Levitz called me and said, by chance, are you Jewish? Out of the blue. I've known Paul for 50 years. First time ever he said, and I said, yes, I am. Because Schanes is a Russian Jew name, except when my grandfather went through Ellis Island in 1904 or 1905,
Yep.
there was no Russian-speaking immigration officers. So what they heard, they wrote down as Schanes, which is pronounced Schanes. But no one can say it properly when you read it. So as a funny side note, when I was getting First Communion as a Catholic, the Grand Poobah Bishop was in town that day. So the night before we did a practice session. The boys are on one side, the girls are on the other side, alphabetic order. So Susie Adams is in front, and Josie Zizzo was in the back. And I was in the boys' line for the S's. And you go up and get your First Communion, and you say, the bishop would say, hello, my son, blah, 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 blah. So, my son, what is your name? I go, my name is Bill Schanes. If I say it fast, they won't get it. So it's, okay, my son, no problem. So next day I walk up and it's doing the girl A, B, C, D, boy, girl, and he gets to me and he looks up at me and he goes, my son, William Anus. And you don't laugh in a Catholic church. And there was nobody not laughing.
Yeah.
Except I didn't know it was funny.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way I could teach you how to say my name correctly, except not with a big delay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm way off the subject matter, but I'm a big fan of my two really prime goals is to work with comic book retailers. Like I'm #1 fan of every retailer. People that open up a store are courageous. These are risk takers. These are visionary people. Most will fail, few will succeed. But man, do I love comic book stores.
Mm.
And the second is the fans that frequent those stores. I mean, the fans that buy on mail order and internet love those guys too. But to make that journey into that world of fandom, into that massive arena in 800 square feet or 1,200 square feet or 5,000 square feet, and the eyeballs that brighten up and the absorption of all those product categories, it is absolutely a magical connection that cannot be replicated by Amazon or anybody else.
Yeah.
So when I retired in 2013, I had done traveling for Diamond and Pacific Comics a lot. I visited 40 countries for work only. But I started traveling full time in 2013 when I retired. And I've now visited 168 countries.
Wow.
There's only 197 in the world.
Yeah.
And a bunch of them I can't go to with an American passport. They're too dangerous.
Yeah, and your ethnicity as well.
Yes. But what I've done is I made a special point when I visit a country, I seek out specialty stores.
Yeah.
So I think, and this is not a gloat or pat on the back, there's no one close to how many stores I visited than me. I've been to easily 2,000 comic book stores, easily.
Well, I want to ask you something then, because this is a very interesting conversation that we've had quite a bit lately, and that is the decline of comic book stores in the United States, and how many we think are out there still. And you're a perfect person to ask because you were there and when at the pinnacle of the comic book stores and the popularity in this country when there was 10,000 comic book stores out there. To see where it is now, what are your thoughts on it? And I want to ask you first and foremost, how many comic book stores do you think are out there in the United States right now currently?
Well, first of all, to be very frank and honest, and I try to do both, what I'm not known for is my subtlety. So I just say what's on my mind and it comes out. Sometimes it insults people, but it's always my frank opinion and I live by it. The reality is I don't really know. I can tell you this, when I opened my first store, there was no licensed merchandise. There was a few underground comics from Ripoff Press, Last Gasp, and a few other companies. There wasn't Starlog magazine yet. And we had, 80% of our volume was back issue comics. But what we did to make other merchandise is we did decoupage in the middle of our store. So we took our comic book cover, ripped the cover off, glued it to a piece of wood, and then burnt it, like the old Western signs.
Yeah.
And man, those suckers sold fantastic. I was taking a 50-cent Marvel book and selling for $10 on a piece of wood. And I was selling hundreds of them a month. And I was burning them myself behind the register. So in the height of the comics for this, there was supposed to be 10,000 stores. What is a comic book store? That's a hard definition.
What is a comic book store to you, Bill?
It's a social gathering place. It's a community place. It's a place that has astute people behind the register that understands different collecting groups and appreciates them all and discriminates against none. That's a comic book store to me.
Hell
now, that can be a 200 square foot store, or it could be a 50,000 square foot store. To me, the idea of wonderment and the generational happening of young kids going with their parents who shopped at the store 20 years ago, and now the next generation is doing that. That's a magical experience that can only experience in the store. I think there's about 2,000 stores generically that are in North America, a couple hundred in Canada, the rest in North America. But there's another 7 or 8 in Europe alone. But their stores are on typical basis, because I've visited almost all of them, literally. they typically are nicer stores, maybe not in the best locations, but they spend a lot more per build out than North American stores do.
So I know you've been to Album in Paris.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I would put any one of the individual albums against 80% of the US stores.
Well, there used to be 7 albums in one block.
Yeah.
Now there's one.
Yeah.
But in the main album store, they had the Starship Enterprise breaking through the roof, crashing into the racks. It was like 20 feet long.
Jesus.
They had Star Trek, Star Wars figures. They had every character blown up, colossal size.
Do you remember?
Do you
remember Arkham in Paris?
Of course.
Yeah, Numa is a good friend of mine.
Right.
They spent so much money, and my favorite part about Arkham is there's an old World War II bomb shelter in the basement that was almost like a discotheque when they wanted it to be.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. But the thing is it's what's the big place in Paris, the Congress of Paris? It's 2 blocks from the Congress of Paris.
Right. Right.
You couldn't afford to do a comic shop in America 2 blocks from like Congress.
Well, I visited a few years back. I visited Shakespeare and Company.
Oh yeah.
Which is widely known as the oldest continuous bookstore in the world.
Yep.
So it's only a few blocks away from Notre Dame, the cathedral,
France,
which obviously burnt down and now been reconstructed again. And this is a store that's 150 years old, 200 years old, whatever it is. It's in a relatively side street, but it's magical because it's so old school. The floors are uneven, the shelves are a little crooked, they're really skinny, but they have every kind of book imaginable at different angles. So the idea of a comic book store and that experience, it's so powerful. And I've always had trouble defining what a comic book store is. I think the consumer defines it themselves.
Yes.
And it is a living experience.
I think
Well,
it's
and
changed.
Bill-
It's obviously changed throughout the years of what
Yes.
it mainly is. Depending on what's hot and what the zeitgeist is and what everybody's going after, and comic book stores have to make money to stay open. They have to make money to keep their doors open. So.
Right.
Right now, comic book stores are being forced to sell more than just comic books. They're being forced to, in order to stay open, they got to sell TCG. They got to sell vinyl. They got to sell collectible, anything else collectible in order to
Funko
keep
Pops.
the doors open.
Well,
Funko
they have to be a department store in 600 feet.
Yep.
You have to be a department store in 5,000 feet. Jesse's got a big store. Other people have little baby stores. But you have to have a wide product selection with different product categories, and you got to keep it fresh.
Yep.
And if you're engaging and you keep it fresh, you can build a business. It's a tough business. Now, I will say, to their credit, I criticized Jim Lee during COVID times very harshly. But to his credit, DC's on fire right now. I mean, they are on.
Well, I don't think he gets any credit
smoking.
for it.
Yeah.
But he's the head of the ship right now. He gets credit for it.
Is he?
Yeah.
Stop it.
So when you walk into one of these 2,000 comic book stores, is there something special you're looking for? Is there that blend of, well, I want to see Silver Age, Golden Age, Bronze Age books, or are you just looking in general at comics?
I'm looking for nothing. I'm looking for everything. I stopped collecting about 15 years ago, and I've got about 20 comics and maybe 50 pieces of artwork. I used to have 2,500 pieces of artwork.
Wow.
I used to have, like all of us, have a huge comic collection. But neither one of my kids are into this stuff, and I didn't want to burden them with how to deal with it when I pass, because they wouldn't know how to sell it and what to get for it.
Right.
So I took care of that, so I don't have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah.
When I walk in the store, I'm looking for everything. I literally have no idea what's inside. I start with pictures from the front windows. I stand across the street, take a far view, take a close-up of every front window. I walk up to the front counter and say, I'm from America. I want to introduce myself. Was it okay if I take photographs? 99% of the time, it's yes. Occasionally, to my surprise, there's a few no's, which I never understand.
No.
But that's fine. That's their business. That's their right. I introduce myself. Most of them don't know my name, and I'm fine with that. I'm not a pretty person. I'm a business guy. No one needs to know who I am.
Right.
But then I like to look at the store in its entirety. I like displays. I like colors. I like how some stores have shopping carts. I was in a store in Brazil, and they had like grocery shopping cart. The store is 15,000 square feet, super wide aisles, lighting to die for, totally designed out to the T. They had little shopping bags, shopping carts. They had foot lockers to leave your bags behind. I mean, they were there to do business.
Yeah.
Do you think
and
that
make
that kind of
customer
store?
experience.
Do you think that that kind of store can survive, or is possible in the United States right now?
I do. It depends. Like, I think when you've got a big city environment,
Yep.
you have a population advantage. So obviously, like you've got Midtown in Manhattan, and people like that who's got.
Where in
Midtown,
Brazil is that? Is that in Sao Paulo?
It's in Rio.
Okay, so it's not one of the biggest city centers. It's one of the smaller or medium-sized ones.
Well,
right?
Rio's a pretty good city.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not like New York or Chicago or Los
no.
Angeles.
No, but if you
They
go
got a
visit
million or
Midtown
plus.
Comics,
They got a million plus people.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
If you visit Midtown Comics in Midtown, their main store, which is a Blockbuster store, they're in the second and third floor. They have no footprint on the ground level because the rent would price them out.
Yeah.
But what they did is all their stores have corner locations, and they dress those windows to the T. They all have neon signs.
Yep.
They all have huge S's and huge FFs and huge. So it's Midtown Comics from blocks away.
Yeah.
Really good marketers.
Yeah.
So when I walk into a store, I've got no preconceived notion. And sometimes the stores are old school in every way possible, and it's charming. But I know they can't make money. They're fan headquarters. But the guys have some diversification, that have some kind of decent retail outlet that understands the interconnection between fandom and how they interact. Those guys can traditionally do pretty well. I'm pro retailer. I believe there's an absolute place where a wide number of stores can prosper and make a living for the owner. Can a single operator make $250,000 a year? No. Net profit can't happen, with a few exceptions. But they're pretty rare. I used to joke with Rory Root over at Comic Relief in the Bay Area. He passed along a long time ago, famous for his fedora hat and his cup of coffee. And I told Rory, I don't think I knew 10 stores that did $1 million a year. And he goes, I'm off by $100,000. I do $900,000 a year. But he famously coded his name as a comic book bookstore. And his famous claim was he wanted to keep one copy of every graphic novel in print forever. So he had thousands of graphic novels when most stores had hundreds.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, that put him out of business because he had so much inventory that wasn't selling.
Yeah, there was a certain point where I used to tell people when they would come in and say, hey, why don't you have this book? And I'm like, I'll tell you what, I could staple a $20 bill to that wall, and some of these books will never make me as much as that $20 bill I could take off of that wall anytime I want.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, to the credit that the men and women who own comic book stores and the people behind the cash wraps, man, those are the superheroes.
Well, and it's not just that, Bill. They're the number one customer base for the industry. Every store and the 3 to 5 employees that are hired by those stores, that represents 20% of the reading population of the industry, aside from customers. And we never talk about that, Bill.
Right. And it's the same example. So during COVID times, when Diamond closed up shop, good decision or bad decision doesn't matter at this point. And DC went their own way, and that's fine also, whatever. I had reached out to a lot of my professional friends to do a program called Give Comics Hope. I'm not patting myself on the back. Jesse helped me. Dennis helped me. Many other people helped. And Well, I did many things wrong during that campaign. I raised, $100,000. It was a very small amount of money. I thought I'd do 10 times that. I made some mistakes along the way. But what I did do is I talked to Robert Kirkman. And Robert, God bless that guy. That guy
Amen.
is
I'll second
a
that. I'll
professional and a
third it. I'll
fanboy and
forfeit.
everything between. I said, Robert, we need your best books right now. Drop everything and get them something they can sell and do it for free.
And he did it one step better, and he gave it to us.
And he shipped about $1.5 million worth of retail product at his expense, including the freight.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He gave every retailer the diamond invoice was a freight invoice of like a dime a copy to cover the freight bill on his copies.
Wow.
So, to me, that's a Herculean effort.
Yes. He never will have to answer a single question from me on his support for retailers of the industry ever. His actions can speak louder than anything he's ever done.
Right. So, I'm just such a big fan. I no longer read comics anymore, which is kind of sad for me. I had a stroke a few years back, and I've already had bad eyes. So that becomes too frustrating. But I love talking about it. I love meeting people. I have no path to glory. I don't give a shit about that part. I just like to be involved in this small community, a community that embraced a 13-year-old who's illiterate and allow me to make money and take care of my family and hopefully enrich people's lives a little bit and keep the industry going one step at a time forward. I try to do my part. There's many important players. Paul Levitz is crucial, absolutely crucial. You may like him, you may hate him, but he's crucial.
Yeah.
There's a few people like that that are early adopters, and almost everyone in the early times were all teenagers.
Well,
almost all of everybody.
Well, let's talk about this real quick because you're giving me a nice way to segue, as I call it, into the Bud Plant art books and what the future is that with you, because this big story just hit the industry websites lately. Bill Schanes acquires assets of Bud's art books on the 29th of January. This is a big deal. And, you said you retired in 2013. Now you're getting back into it. What does this mean for the future of you, Bill, and Bud Plant's art books?
Well, first of all, retirement's a funny word for me because when I announced I was retiring from Diamond, I gave 9 months notice because I want to make sure there was proper training in place. You normally don't give 9 months notice.
No.
You might give 2 weeks, or if you're generous, a month. Now, Diamond chose to have me say 6 months versus 9 months. That was their choice. I was fine with that. Ted Adams at IDW, who's I think is personally one of the most brilliant people in comics on the business side. That man could run Marvel or DC very comfortably. He is brilliant. He has been after me for years to do some work for them, some consulting work. But I said it's a conflict of interest. Can't do consulting work while I'm at Diamond. So I made the announcement that I'm leaving. Ted's on the phone and says, hey, now it's time, let's do something. I did some work and we ended up helping them acquire Chris Starrow's company, Top Shelf. Anyway, so when Diamond was growing and I was working for them, we had bought a bunch of distributors with an asset-only agreement, which we bought all the assets but none of the liabilities. And the reason the Bud Plant announcement's worded the way it was is that when you buy the company as its whole, you're never really sure all the negatives. So if you buy it assets only, you know exactly what you're getting, the assets only. There's no liabilities.
You could have talked to a few people about a year ago when Diamond announced the bankruptcy, Bill.
If it makes anyone feel any better, I tried 8 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago. I said, I can't fix it, but I can give you some suggestions. And I was told over and over and over again, we know exactly what we're doing. I have it under control. I'm saying you don't know what you're doing and you don't have it under control.
Right.
Anyway, so the reason it's worded asset only is Bud wanted to make sure he's finished his career by paying every single invoice off under his name.
Respectable.
Right.
That's respect.
And I want to say on February 1st, every new invoice that comes in, I'm personally responsible. I'm taking care of it.
Right. Exactly.
So that's why I didn't buy his company. I bought the assets.
So
Now, to
you
be
don't
fair-
own. So you don't own the Bud Plant name.
No, that's an asset. I own the name.
Oh, you do own the name. Okay.
Right. Now, there's also Bud Plant and Ann Hutchinson, his partner. They have a rare book business. And they use Bud Plant's name on the rare books, which we're allowing them to do.
And only because Brian is here also, have you considered opening a dispensary? Because that's the perfect name for one.
Yes, it is.
I've talked to Bud about that for many times, and Bud's told me a couple of times that he's been offered some significant money to sell his name
Yes.
to dispensaries over and over again.
Yes.
Well, here's what's funny for
Anyway, so
everybody that doesn't
get back to-
understand what we're talking about. If you go ahead and just go look up Bud Plant on Google, and you'll see what you get.
Yeah,
you won't find a comic book guy there. That's for sure.
you're gonna find the comic book guy at page 50 of the Google search.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, Bud is one of our founders, one of my good friends, and he had tried to sell his business about 10 to 12 years ago, couldn't find a buyer, and announced that as of December 31st, he was done. And I just said, this is one of the most significant people in our history of our direct market. He can't leave this way.
And he stayed that way.
Yes.
He is literally set up at San Diego. Does he still set up at San Diego?
No, he did 48 years in a row, but he stopped in recent years.
Right. But that last booth at San Diego was probably as close to his first booth at San Diego as you could get.
Yes.
He was unchanged through all those years.
And almost every single creator has bought books from Bud Plant.
Yes.
Because Bud does something that no one else does. I don't do it. No one else does. He's curated such a level of respect that when he says this book is highly recommended, people buy it even if they don't like the book.
Yep.
Because Bud says it's cool. Bud says it's a good read. The art's great. And so,
you know how I look at that?
Question, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Bud Plant traditional system and change nothing. We're going to still have Bud's recommendations. I brought on Marty Grosser, the previous editor, who I hired 37 years ago at Diamond, to now take over Bud's writing responsibilities and recommendations. On top of that, we're going to start carrying many, many more, not every book, but many more graphic novels, trade paperbacks, and hardcovers that Bud normally wouldn't carry. And they will have different designations, but not highly recommended designations.
Well, no offense, Bill, but I almost think that a Bill Schanes recommendation is almost as powerful in this industry as Bud Plant's recommendation.
Well, Dennis, I appreciate that. And the reality is that the last 13 years, I've now aged out mentally and physically. And to be fair, when I was at Pacific Comics, a little pat on my back, I was really freaking knowledgeable.
Yeah.
That's
about
important.
every product category out there.
Yep.
Bill,
And I don't know that I can't tell you who the new publishers are anymore. I don't know who they are.
Bill,
Hey,
I got to say something
me
real quick
neither.
on that, because we talk about that a lot. One of the things that I say is that I think most brick and mortar store owners and retailers out there don't truly follow that on the level that they used to. And what I mean by that is they aren't reading every book that comes in, or a majority of the books that comes in. They aren't following what's hot on the secondary market. They don't know who the hottest creators are in comics anymore. I feel like that's a big problem. And, that is something that it sounds like you kept up on, obviously. I mean, when, you talked about the Pacific stuff, comic stuff, with the fandom and people like, Jack Kirby, Neil Adams, Dave Stevens, all these people.
Let me just jump in for one quick question. I forgot to mention this earlier on. At our 4 stores, I can't say this with 100% confidence, but I'm pretty sure we're the first stores that do cycle sheets every week.
And I was doing them when I stopped new books. I used a hand count cycle sheet because I did not trust the Diamond POS system.
Explain what a cycle sheet is for everybody that doesn't know what a cycle sheet is.
So in my day, this from 1973 on to 84, it was a binder full of pieces of paper with a series of boxes, title on the list, issue number in the second cell, and then week after week sales of that one book. Now, in my case, I went the extra step. I noted every artist and every writer on every book.
Wow.
So for my sake, from a technical aspect, if you think about a sports analyst of statistics, I knew that when Bruce Jones and April Campbell came to me and said, we want to package a book for you, I said, great. And creators will actually hate this statement with a passion. But if you think about it, it's not insulting. I had put sales grades on every creator. So I had told all of our editors that you need to have an 8.5 numbered book or higher for me to authorize publishing it.
Wow.
What that meant was that writer always sold more than 40,000 copies. That artist always sold more than 75,000 copies. That editor always had the best books. So Dave Stevens, who was unknown, got a 0 because it wasn't published. But he was in back of Mike Grell, who had just come off the DC book, Warlord. So he was super hot. So he was like a big number scorer. So I don't like putting people in numerical orders, but I knew when I was publishing Pixar Comics how many copies would sell, except I underestimated by grossly. So it was a mathematical equation I had figured out early on that I don't believe anyone was doing, and actually no one's doing it today.
No one.
Although John Jackson does a good job with this chronology thing, whatever it's called.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that I notice. You know, and I talk about this all the time on the show, on the channel. You know, these guys, and when I say these guys, I mean Emmett, Jesse, and Dennis, and a couple other retailers that I know, have kind of, you know, pulled back the curtain for me on the industry, you know, and showed me so many of the things that I thought I knew before that I never knew. But one of the things that is fascinating to me is that a vast majority, I feel like there's such a disconnect in the industry, and that includes publishers, retailers, of they don't know truly what is hot and what the buying base wants right now. I felt like that may have been true in the past, but over the last 5 to 10 years, I feel like that it's changed so much and so rapidly that they're stuck in the past and they don't see what is new now and what's hot now. And sometimes they don't want to look at it, if that makes sense.
I think they're not stuck in the past. The editors and at these comic companies are not reading their competition, are not reading new writers on independence. They're not reading books in the industry. They're focused on if they could get a writing gig, or, you know, they're not looking at everything that's going on in the industry.
Or they would all be.
So how are they not? So how are they not stuck in the past by not looking what's not going on?
Because in the
industry?
past they used to read everything. They used to read the competitions books. They used to read all the independent books, so they could see who was doing well and what.
Okay, so I get what you're saying. So let me repurpose that what I said, or restate what I said. They don't know who the new hot guys are. They don't know who the hot creators are. They don't know who the buying base is really going after right now. That's the way I look at it.
Just look at Image Comics. That's the hot base.
Yep.
Well, and I just wanted to touch base on something that you skipped over, Bill. And so we talk a lot in the industry in this show about gatekeeping. And like it or not, you were the king of the gatekeepers for close to 15 years as the Diamond Retail Purchasing Board.
28 years.
28 years. So Bill was in charge of reading all of the new submissions by all the new publishers, along with a handful of other people, to decide what Diamond would carry. And it's because of Bill that I never became a publisher. So thank you, Bill.
Well, you know, if you ever know you would go to a dentist and get your tooth pulled, reading unsolicited comic publishers' first efforts, it's like a root canal times 10.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Half of them spell their own company names wrong inside the books.
But talk about this aspect of it, which I think is gone now. I don't think Diamond for the last 5 years really had that, did they?
It's hard to say. You know, for a long time, Diamond was accused of being a discouraging small press.
Yep.
Because in the reality of it, during the Diamond comic distributors Capital City distribution wars, Capital was very independent friendly. And before I got the Diamond only carried Marvel, DC, Archie, Harvey, and Starlog. That was it. And they had a 2-page order form with no pictures and no descriptions. So you had to buy Spider-Man number 87, whatever it was, and it's 50 cents, and that's your entire thing.
Yep.
Capital had a blurb and a picture, much better.
Yes.
So did Pacific Comics back in the day. But the reality of it was that sometimes my memory, like, what was I just saying?
Retailer board.
Yeah, so we were always accused at Diamond of not carrying stuff. So when I came aboard at Diamond, I was hired on my first interview with Steve Jeppy. And I knew he was a Jehovah's Witness back then, but no one else knew that. His wife was a Jehovah's Witness. I said, well, I'd interviewed with Milton and John at Capital City. I'd interviewed with Bud Plant after Pacific Company's 84. And I didn't want to interview with Russ Ernst at Glenwood, a Detroit guy, sorry, because I didn't really get along with him very well. And I really wanted to work for Bud Plant, but Bud's sales appeal was you get to live in the woods and you get paid no money. Like, I just got married and I need to support my family, we're gonna have kids, blah, blah, blah. And then I interviewed with Capital City, and John and Milton are really good guys. I've known them very well. We've gone to war, we've gone to peace, we've done a lot of things together. And they had all the normal interview questions about me, but I had done the dossier on both Capital City and Diamond. So I peppered back a ton of questions. And one was this. It wasn't a question, it was more an analogy. And I'm famous at Diamond about analogies. And there used to be a site, which is now closed, unfortunately, that was called Bill-isms on the intranet that only Diamond employees could see.
Uh-huh.
And there were several hundred. It would just roll out of my mouth. Some like small acorns make big trees. It would just spew out this crap, whatever. So I said to John and Milton, Capital City is like a beautiful wedding cake. It's got 4 tiers, and the white icing is just glossy, and it's got roses, and it's got the man and woman on top with the arch above them. It looks spectacular. You guys are really good at marketing and promotions. But when you cut the cake, you take a bite, it doesn't taste any good. Which is my interview question to get a job from them. I said, what you guys need to do is you need an accountant. I do what you guys already do. You don't need me. You need an accountant. And I can't help you. I'm glad to take the job, but I'm doing exactly what you guys do. So separate phone call, I called Steve Jeppy. And he's got his questions. I got my dossier. I said, Steve, first of all, to be honest, if you hire me, you can't make any decisions about what product we carry. It's your company, but you can't make a decision because your religious background will cripple us. So if you hire me, I'm carrying Playboy magazine on month 1. Because I got to make sure you're not going to go back on your word.
Wow.
So I said, Steve, you got this big wedding cake, 4 tiers. And what's weird is there's no icing. There's no roses. There's no white icing. There's no man and woman. There's no arch. But you cut the cake, tastes pretty damn good. And I can ice that cake for you on day 1, and we'll go from regional to worldwide in 5 years, not knowing anything about their company. So he says, well, how are you going to do that? He says, you pay your bills on time, and you don't mess with what product selection is going to be. And we'll go from a regional distributor to national and then international. And how we're going to do that is we're going to start buying corrals of horses, i.e. buying other distributors versus trying to pick up account by account. So you can go to a trade show and say, okay, Mr. Retailer, Jesse, you switch from Capital City to Diamond. And that costs so much time and energy and money to make that transition. Yep. And accounts hate changing distributors with a passion. It's the worst. It's like the worst thing ever. But if you buy the corral, you buy a distributor, those retailers are now stuck with you for 3 months until a new ordering cycle comes up. And it's Diamond's job to earn their trust in 3 months because they don't have to change twice in 3 months.
Right.
So I came up with this concept of let's keep buying people. And during my reign of terror, which is what I call it, it was a team effort. It wasn't me, it was a team effort. But the concept was sound. We bought 19 distributors. That's how Diamond grew.
Yeah, yeah.
I got one more question to ask you, Bill, because I've talked about it on this show several times when this gentleman and his associates have come on. But you were the butt of what I think was maybe the greatest publisher. I keep this on the wall in my office.
This is where Dennis and I had a little bit of a conflict. So this shirt was given out by Boom Publishing.
Philip and Ross handed them out at the Diamond Retailers Summit.
Right. So Diamond every year sponsored an event for retailers only. Publishers would come and give presentations, give away a lot of swag. And I try to encourage them to give away really good swag. So it basically paid for the plane ticket and hotel bills. So people they're leaving their store with a manager or spouse or somebody, but they can come back and not cost them money to attend.
Yeah.
That was my goal.
It's smart.
And so the publishers coming to a Diamond event, you wouldn't bash your host. I had known Ross for a little while, and Philip Sablik used to work for me before he worked for Boom. And so Ross was saying to me on the phone, I want to become a number 5 publisher. I said, Ross, you just don't publish enough titles to be number 5. It's not possible. You can't leapfrog Dark Horse or Image. You can't do that. And so he got very mad at me, rightfully so, because I was kind of disparaging his company. But I wasn't disparaging his company. I was disparaging the total output versus competitors. And so we made a bet. And the bet was within 1 year, he could become a number 5 publisher or higher. And I said, well, in my part of the world, I put a dollar bill and I sign it and I put the bet on the signed dollar bill. And the dollar bill bet was Boom will become a number 5 publisher within 12 months. He signed one, I signed one. A year later, I'm a numbers guy. I routinely, I'm a checklist guy. In my private life, I've got 800 checklists right now on my phone for every bizarre thing you could ever think of. Like I've written down a list of every animal I've ever seen in a live person. Every car I've been in, Buick, Rolls, I write them all down. It's a weird thing. It's a dyslexic thing. Anyway, a year later, Ross didn't make the number. But at that event, the Diamond Summit, he gave away shirts during the presentation. He said, Bill, I think you attend the presentations. Please attend this one. I said, of course, Russ, I wouldn't miss it. So he gets up on stage and introduces himself. And Russ has always had a very unusual presentation, less about the individual product and more about philosophies and goals, which I loved. And so Ross gets on stage and basically says, a big slide comes up and it says 8-foot image says, prove Bill wrong. And he says this bet, and then he starts throwing shirts to the crowd. 500 shirts, they're going everywhere, every different direction. And I said, Russ, I need 2 of those shirts. And he goes, are you pissed? No, I think it's really funny. But the Diamond staff was pissed beyond belief. They missed the punchline completely. So I brought the shirts home the next morning at breakfast before the sun started. I put the shirts on my kids' the breakfast table, and they both wore them. They thought it was hilarious. So the next morning,
hey, there's nobody better to prove a parent wrong than their kids.
Well, the next morning at the summit, 35% of the retailers were wearing that shirt to prove Bill wrong. It was a massive sea of white shirts.
Yeah.
About 10 years later, Boom finally made it to the front of the catalog. And I mailed Russ my signed dollar. And he thanked me. I said, I wear your shirt on special occasions. I think it's a gas. I love it. But I love you. I'm glad you have that shirt. It was a really good memory.
It was one of the best. And I mean, we both know Al Kaplan, and
Right.
When you come up with one of those brilliant guerrilla marketing strategies to make the customer, which is the retailer in Ross's case, part of the bet, part of the drama, it makes them involved. And I just thought it was one of the most brilliant things. And it was like my second year of being a retailer.
You know what's really strange is I did something very similar in 1981. Last conversation, unless you want to kick me off, is when Captain Victory #1 came out. It came out during Comic-Con in San Diego. That was a launch weekend on purpose. And we decided, Jack was going to spend all 4 days at our table signing books, because he had invested every copy he sold, he get a piece of the pie.
Yep.
Not just a page rate, but he got royalties from copy one. And so he planted himself at our booth every day, signing copies. Well, unbeknownst to Jack, I talked to Roz about making some T-shirts up of Captain Victory. And for a Thursday only promotion, for every copy of Captain Victory #1 you got a free T-shirt. So the book sold for $1. The shirt cost me $2.50.
Yeah.
I sold 4,000 copies in the first day.
Wow.
Yep.
The next day at Comic-Con, every freaking consumer was wearing Captain Victory shirts.
Yep.
And Mike Grell goes up and says, "What's this about?"
Why didn't you
And
make
Neil
a shirt
Adams
of my
says-
character?
And Neil Adams says, "Hey, this is pretty cool. You're doing promotions to promote comics." The best financial loss I ever took was that deal.
Hell yeah.
Hey,
Because the fans were promoting my company.
right.
You know what those shirts are probably worth today?
Amen.
About 25 cents.
No way.
No, sir. Oh, no, sir.
Now, I will tell you a very bizarre story is when I closed up Pacific Comics, I spent 9 months doing nothing, and then I was broke. But during those 9 months, I played basketball and surfed every day for 9 months.
Yep.
And I decided, as a weird quirk of fate, when I had the distributorship, one of my mandates was, besides a business license for a new store, if they had a shirt, they had to give me a shirt. If they didn't have one, they could still open up and I'd sell it to them.
Right.
But if they had a store shirt, they'd give me a shirt.
Right.
The first guy who gave me one was Joe Ferreira at Atlantis Fantasy World.
Yeah.
The goat.
Santa Cruz.
The goat.
One of the best guys out there.
Yeah.
Fabulous guy. So I had hundreds of shirts from all these stores. So during those 9 months, I said to myself, I'm not doing laundry for a year. I'm doing no laundry.
Yeah.
So I wore one comic book store shirt a day for 9 months. And didn't run out.
Right.
Except what I should have done is, it was the world's best collection of comic book store shirts.
There you go. Yeah.
That's because these are all the 60s and 70s stores.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So these are the guys that got Neil Adams to draw. Neil Adams drew Joe's shirt.
Yeah.
Which was on my house in Maryland, was the only shirt I wore when I mowed my lawn.
We had a comic store. Do you remember Greg Theakston?
Of course.
Yeah. So Greg Theakston painted the side of one of the comic book stores that was up the road from my second to last store. And when they sold that building, they painted over Greg's amazing, incredible Hulk, 10 foot tall on the side of cinder block. But that was young Greg Theakston painting that before he became Greg Theakston.
Right.
And it was just, and Greg, and those of you who don't know, Greg Theakston was actually Jack Kirby's assistant for a while, helped him finish pieces.
He owned a company called Pure Imagination.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're ever in the Boston area, visit a fabulous store, old school but new school at the same time. That's Entertainment. That's Entertainment has several things that are just amazing. First of all, it's a huge store, 20,000 square feet. It has all old school racking. What's really cool is they have an alley next to them, and they got the city to approve the alley name of Lois Lane.
Oh, that's awesome.
It only goes to their store.
Wow.
It dead ends. It starts in front of the store and it ends in the parking lot behind the store.
That's awesome.
And the second is 3/4 of the store facade is painted with cartoon graphics that you can see hundreds of feet away. It's a fabulous store.
Yep.
Yep. And there's a customer over here in the chat. Yeah.
Yep. Hey, Bill, so let me ask you this question. So you got all this cool stuff coming up with Bud Plant. When you get it all set, you then do the social marketing, and then you then do an email and saying hit everybody that you want to hit. How did you do this in the 80s? And how did you contact stores without anything that you have today?
Well, so those are very elementary times. There was no internet. There was phone books and conventions and people you knew.
And
Now-
a phone call outside of your town cost real money.
Yeah.
Yes. And in the Pacific Comics launch titles, if you look at Captain Victory 1, Ms. Mystic, you will find a list of hundreds of comic book stores listed for free inside the books. That's how pro comic book stores we were. And so we had kind of an organic growth and the word of mouth that said, these guys are kind of cool. They kind of know what's going on. They're pretty personable. That Bill talks too fast, but other than that, he's a pretty good guy. And the word just got out. And I've always been a road warrior. So I've traveled to, again, not boasting, way over 1,000 shows myself, conventions, way over that. I've been to probably 500 gaming shows, 400 toy shows. I traveled 25 to 30 times a year for Diamond for 28 years. I get the word out because I visit people. I shake their hand. Weird stories. At an early Comic-Con after 81, a guy walks up to our Pacific Comics booth, and he's just almost like dripping out of his mouth about how much he loves the Pacific Comics line. And I look at his badge, and he's got a bolo tie on and a big cowboy hat and checkered shirt. I'm like, oh, you seem to really like what we're doing. So I love your stuff. Reminds me of the ECs. Oh, that's very nice. It's the highest compliment ever. Super nice. So I look at his badge and it says Al. I'm like, oh, Al, nice to meet you, Al. My name is Bill Schanes. He goes, well, I know who you are. You're the Pacific Comics guy. I look at his badge again. It's Al Felstein. And he says to me, why don't you guys call me? I would have drawn a book for free for you inside any of your books. I love what you did. I'm like, I'm such an asshole for not calling him. Why didn't I even think about that?
Yeah.
But I think it was just lots of word of mouth. We did,
but it
one
was
year at
that
San
East
Diego.
Coast, West Coast thing too, though, a little
It
bit.
It is. I did a lot of shows. I spread the word. I spread the Pacific Comics gospel. I wrote on Facebook. I wrote a lot of stories on Facebook about my history. That 1 year, over a 6-week period, I did 19 conventions myself.
Wow.
And what I did was I talked to convention organizers. I said, I'm going to send you 50 boxes of comics. I'm going to pay your staff $20 an hour, which is probably 4 times minimum wage at the time. Every book had a sticker that was peelable. You sell a book, you peel the sticker off, you put it on a binder. You send me the binder, send me most of the cash. I know there'll be some theft happening. That's okay. But I got my word out. We made a little bit of money, but there's a lot of work coordinating that many shows.
Yeah.
Damn near killed me. But we were I was in Tulsa, Houston, Dallas, Louisiana, Miami, Chicago, and Detroit on the same day.
Wow.
Week after week, it was just crazy. But I met our customers. I went out and shook their hand every time with Pacific Comics, Pacific Comics, Pacific Comics. And it resonated. It really did a job for us.
I want to ask one thing. I want to talk about one thing before we let you go. I want to also mention real quickly that you've already been here once, Bill. We're going to bug you to come on here more than just this time. So just so you know, be ready for it. But that being said, I want to talk about Dave Stevens for a second, because
Sure.
the resurgence in Dave Stevens art and people collecting Dave Stevens pieces and comics and all kinds of stuff, art books, everything throughout the years. Over the last about 3-4 years, it's been absolutely crazy resurgence in collecting of Dave Stevens stuff. And we see it in a major way in secondary market sales and stuff. Tell us a little bit about Dave Stevens and what it was like when you first started working with Dave back in the day.
So first of all, thank you very much for the compliment. And you want me on, just tell me what day and time and I'll be there.
Hell
It's
yeah.
easy to do. So on the Dave Stevens front, Dave was working as an understudy for Russ Manning and was sharing studio space with Richard Hescox and I think Bill Stout and one other person, I can't remember the fourth person, like the studio in New York City with the four greats. And Bill Stout had done a portfolio for us called Dragons, which was a beautiful piece, just a fantastic piece. And somehow Dave knew us through Comic-Con. He was down having a table. He was not popular then because he didn't have his own strip. He was always the understudy. And then he won the Russ Manning Award. And then said, well, hey, maybe I'm not as bad as I think I am. You know, Dave was, to his credit, a perfectionist, as shown by his artwork.
Yeah.
But to be fair to him, he was so meticulous, so detail-oriented, he couldn't draw a page to pay his rent. He was
Was it
slow.
you or your brother in the documentary that said if he could have done more work, Pacific Comics would have still been in business or something?
It was my brother, but you know, the reality was that he was doing about a page a week. And we were paying Marvel rates, but just a page a week, you can't make money.
Right.
And so what we did to augment was that's where the postcards came from and the posters came from. We kept repurposing his artwork to get him more money.
Yeah.
To limp him through the next rent payment. He was, you know, he would spend a lot of time in libraries before he could afford to buy the books and have them on his own bookshelf, to make sure the airplanes were authentic, to make sure, you know, Betty was properly represented. And, you know, when you have natural talent, you can't deny it.
Yeah.
And we happen to be lucky enough that he graced us to allow him to publish his first works on a bigger screen. But again, you know, we helped to get the word out, but it's all Dave Stevens. It's not me. It's all Dave Stevens.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always give credit to the creators, because without them, none of us are here.
It's pretty amazing to watch a new group of fans fall in love with Dave Stevens stuff. It's one of the fun things that I love watching in fandom and collecting, is to see people like, you know, that maybe weren't into comics when Dave was, you know, around and you know, doing what he was doing back then, that now are now falling in love with his stuff. And I know we all know so many creators and artists that, you know, we're waiting for that to happen to again, but it's very cool to see it happen with Dave now. But what's also very cool from my perspective is to watch the collecting fandom happen around his stuff. Like, you know, we see these amazing, you know, super rare art books that he did shoot up in value that people have never seen. And all, you know,
oh, that Playboy book he did.
The Playboy book he did. Yeah. All this amazing stuff. And the fandom is really pushing this resurgence in his stuff for people to go out and find it and look for it, and to find it in these old comic shops, these old bookstores, these, you know, old places. It's really cool and fun.
Well, and to give Davis credit, he never asked for it, but he was an artist to artist. So the artist community, even the biggest names, wanted to be his friend. You know, Mike Clute is like, Dave's just top drawer, man. That guy is incredible. And, you know, Neil Adams loved him. It was a who's who. We're all Dave Stevens fans. Now, one thing I got to say before I forgot to mention this very important piece before we conclude here is I have a partner on the Bud Plant side, which is my niece, Sasha Farasanis.
Yep.
So she and I are 50-50 partners. I will be the front person, so you get to see my ugly mug and my ugly statements. She's doing the hard work, which is behind the scenes accounting, payroll, that kind of stuff. So she's in this photograph here. There's Bud, my niece, Sasha Farasanis. That's Bud's partner, Ann. My brother, Steve Schanes, who co-founded Pacific Comics with me. And that's me, Chubby Bill.
I just have a couple of questions. Did Pacific own any of the characters, or was it all like Images where they own?
So it's one of I can't say it's a great regret, because we took great advice from the creators. We aced ourselves out on our own agreements. I've never looked back and said that was stupid, but, you know, for all that effort of promotion, we probably should have kept a little piece.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Not a 50-50 piece, but a little piece.
One of my first mentors, Gary Reed, said that he took your style and put that over at Caliber because he didn't want to own the creator's stuff. And of course, he said the exact same thing you did, but I would have liked to have had a little piece of the crow after James left.
Yeah.
Now, to his credit, Eric Stevenson is a very good friend of mine, the publisher of Image, has said on multiple occasions, including the year I retired, the entire Image presentation at Another Diamond seminar was about me. It was not, he didn't mention a single thing about Image Comics. And I don't know why he wasted that time talking about me versus promoting the publications he's authoring. But he basically said that Image Comics wouldn't exist without the Schanes brothers. And I've always been a good business advisor to the other publishers, kind of outside Marvel and DC, that were trying to figure out how to get a foothold in the business. I'm free with my advice. I charge now as a consultant, but back then I was free for my advice. And I'm happy to help people out, and I get a lot of, I'm still pretty busy in retirement. So I just want to mention my niece is involved, and she's a great gal, and we're gonna do well together.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, Bill, I have something for you.
What might that be?
1982, San Diego Comic-Con. Looks like you guys were the header. Not only were you the header, you were
Look at that.
promoting Miss Mystic in the program.
That be us.
Yep. How much did that cost you to put that program in there, or that promo in there?
Those ads back then were dirt cheap. I bet you it was $100-200.
Wow.
It was back then it was a lot of money, but in real terms it was nothing.
Sure,
Right.
sure. But the great thing about that is you're the only publisher in there, so there's nothing about
Well,
Marvel. There's nothing.
Also,
about
remember, I treated San Diego Comic-Con as our home court.
Mm.
Yeah.
One of my huge. So in 1981 was the launch of Captain Victory with the T-shirt giveaway. We went balls out in every possible way possible. Anything I could think of, we're doing at that show. So one of the things we did was we held one of the very first cocktail parties for professionals only.
Wow.
Except we held it at our offices 12 miles away. So I hired 24 buses
Oh, wow.
to go circle routes every 15 minutes so people can get back and forth.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
there was 3 owners of Heidi Ho comic book store in Santa Monica who were all bartenders on the side. Really good friends of mine. And they're going to bartend that evening's event. And they had given me a list of what liquor to buy because I don't drink. I still don't drink. I wouldn't know what's in a rum and Coke except it says Coke and it says rum. Outside of that, I have no hope. So they gave me a long liquor list. I said, well, we're expecting 500 people. I said, well, you need 12 bottles of this, 4 bottles of that. It was like an $18,000 liquor bill in 81. A big goal. The buses were like $5,000. We spent a ton of money at that show with T-shirts. Yeah. We did at that show, as an example, we closed our main store and took the entire store to the show.
Wow.
We emptied the store out, including every rack, every sign, and had 35 booths at that show.
And it probably cost the same as one booth today at San Diego.
Yeah. Yes, except we did more money at that show in those booths than we did a year in that show at our store.
Yeah.
In 1 week. Anyway, so we have this cocktail party in 81. We hire my wife back at the time, made a huge cake with our color scheme, which is a rich blue, the Pacific Comics blue. And it was a flat cake, except she put 12 of them together.
Wow.
So it laid flat in a van, but it filled the entire back of the van up. Because it has to feed 500 people. So back then we owed a blue and gold macaw. It's a big African bird.
Yeah.
That was my personal pet.
But it was didn't that become the San Diego logo for a while?
No,
too?
that was Rick Geary's own creation.
Okay.
It was a cockatoo, but very similar looking bird.
Yes.
Anyway, so we have this big party. The buses are rolling. We have the who's who of creators. The entire Comic-Con guest list rode the buses. So we had Joe Kubert, Siegel and Schuster, Neil Adams. I mean, we had
Holy shit.
250 creators on our buses. It
That's
was
so
ridiculous.
cool.
Right.
All right, so that's all going great. They all show up. When you go to a cocktail party, what's the first thing you do?
Drink.
You go to the bar.
Yep.
So my bartenders, David Scroggie, famous from Dark Horse days, was my right-hand guy at Pacific Comics. And John Hartz, by the way, at the Valiant days, was my right-hand guy for our stores. Anyway, so they go for the bar, but David decided to take the bartenders out for early dinner. Except the hour dinner was 2.5 hours or 2 hours. So the buses started showing up with no bartenders. So I'm like, holy shit, we got to serve drinks.
18 G's worth of booze gathering dust.
So I get behind, a makeshift table with a blanket on it, and I go, bar's open. And of course the crush happens.
Right. Sure.
And so the guy goes, rum and coke. I go, well, I know those two names. I'm now looking at the bottles, trying to find one that's called rum. I know what a Coke is because I got lots of cans of those. So every drink is 50-50. Doesn't matter what it is. Half rum, half Coke. I don't know. I don't know serving size. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I can tell by the expressions when they take a sip that's either the worst drink ever or it's super strong. I can't tell which is which, and no one's telling me I'm doing it wrong. So then people are ordering, this fruity drink. Well, I don't know anything that's in the drink. So I grab 3 bottles and just start pouring.
Jungle juice.
That have no relationship to the drink they ordered. No clue.
That sounds like a leg
So,
party.
About 45 minutes later, the 3 bartenders show up. And they look at the bar and they're like, where'd all the liquor go? It's almost out. It's only 45 minutes in. We're open for 3 more hours. Like, well, I guess I poured. He says, you poured heavy. You're supposed to give 1 shot for like 5 things of water. Because I didn't pour any water.
Yeah.
I'm almost out of Coke. And they're like, we're going to make a run to the liquor store. And back then in San Diego, the very first Sam's Club, not Sam's Club. What's the other big club?
Price Club.
Costco.
Yeah. Price Club.
No, Price Club.
Oh, Price Club. Yeah.
The very first Price Club opened in San Diego about 5 blocks from our first store. That's where I bought the $1,800 worth of liquor, except it's not open at 10 o'clock at night.
No.
So we went to a liquor store, bought it at retail,
Oof.
and spent another 10 grand on liquor just to keep the thing going.
Right. Sure.
So we had music, we had a band. They could shop the warehouse and buy stuff if they wanted to. It was an amazing event. We forgot one small detail. No photographer.
Yeah.
So there's a table with Kirby, Simon, Schuster, and Kubert sitting there for an hour, and there's no photographs. There were 0 photographs. I'm like, I'm the stupidest person on earth. I've now spent 50, 60 grand on all kinds of crazy promotions to launch the color comic line, and I have no photographic evidence anything happened.
Right.
I'm like,
Lessons learned, baby. That's the lesson
Hey,
learned.
I just have one last question for you. When was the last San Diego Comic Con you went to?
Oh, I've been to everyone except for the first one and the COVID years.
Okay.
I'll be there this year's. I'll be there again this year.
Do you feel that going in the 70s and the 80s, it's a completely different event now?
Of course.
Especially for retailers and publishers?
The first 10 years of Comic-Con in San Diego, the films that were shown at midnight were one of the biggest attractions. So they showed Frankenstein and The Mummy and all the classic Universal monster films, and those halls were filled with people.
And
they loved them.
You know who made that the thing, right?
Well, I think Barry Short might be involved. Shel Dope was certainly involved.
Shel made that the biggest part of Triple Fanfare, and he said that was what he wanted to make sure was represented because that was the culture. He said.
Shel was a very interesting guy. He was a little controversial, especially amongst creators, because in his own way, Shel felt that he was a really important person in the universe of comics. And the reality was he was a very important person, but not to the level he thought he was. And so the creators often thought that Shell took more of the credit versus the creators coming to the show. For me, Shell mentored me when I was 13 years old. So I had the utmost respect. I never had a hard feeling towards Shell, but many others did. In fact, I did many radio interviews and television interviews for the early Comic-Cons and local broadcasts. And Shell introduced me as little Bill Schanes to prop himself up, and I was just a little junior high school kid.
Yep.
But that's, I like Shell a lot. And he's an important character. I use the word character on purpose.
I think that's the perfect title for him.
Yeah, he was known as Milton Caniff's letterer.
Yep.
His most famous job, but never had any on-screen credits. Therefore, no one knew it.
He did get credited in the Dick Tracy movie, I believe.
Yes, but that made him very bitter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, put this up on the screen real fast. So this is what Bill was talking about.
Right.
That was the movies they were promoting back then.
That's right.
Yeah.
So those early
Sherlock
shows, to answer your
Holmes.
question, Jesse, were really filled with the Huckster's Room and the old movies with a couple of celebrity artists and writers was the show. You knew you had Jack every year. We had Charles Schultz come twice. One year he spent 8 hours at my booth at Pacific Comics. 8 hours signing books for free. I had to go to B. Dalton Books, so I ran out and buy them off the shelf to bring them back at the booth so he had something to sign.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, and they used to do amazing things back then. Paul Burke, right?
Of course. Staber Graphics.
Yep. So Paul, another one of my mentors from here in the Detroit area, would tell me about the collab pieces that would happen at San Diego. They don't do anything like that anymore.
Well, what happened back in the day was, what Shell had arranged back in the day was they would get a free hotel room and meals for the creators, and Shell would ask, or not ask, but demand that they do a sketch drawing that we publicly auctioned off.
Yep.
And so you had, Charles Schultz on a drawing board, people watching him draw Snoopy. What an amazing attendance thing to do. And they'd be huge drawings, 3 feet wide by 5 feet tall. Jim Steranko, Neil Adams, everyone did it because that's how you got paid for the free room, by doing the drawing. And it was half the time it was done outside the pool. So there's a very famous photograph of Neil Adams and Mike Friedrich walking around with Neil's art portfolio. He had just left drawing a piece of artwork on the auction block outside the pool. And Mike Friedrich's in the background of that photograph.
It was just a more magical time. I don't know if I ever talked to you, but it inspired me those early days, the publishers like you guys. It inspired me to put on my convention. It was either too ahead of its time or too past its time. But I resurrected Detroit Fanfare, ran it for 4 years, but I tried to keep that spirit of the original cons.
Right.
And I just think that the market had moved past that love and into the celebrity culture way too much.
Another guy that's forgotten, except for the old guys, the Great Panthers, I call them, very famous guy called Ken Kruger. So Ken attended the 1939 World Science Fiction Show.
Wow.
As a fan. He published the Tijuana Bibles, which were little mini comics.
Hell yeah.
They were all softcore, hardcore pornography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Printed in Tijuana.
Yep.
Yeah.
He had a revolving door set of adult bookstores where he would open up on week 1, have a grand opening sale for 4 weeks, and then immediately announce he's closing for 4 weeks, and then move a location and open back up again. And he had 8 or 10 of those going at one time, opening, closing nonstop. That was his business model. He was one of the initial guys at Comic-Con in San Diego. With Shell and Mike Towery and Richard Alf and a couple others. Very important guy. He was a rough guy, and he didn't like taking direction. So he's an independent thinker. So as an employee, he absolutely sucked. But he knew everybody. He was always smoking a cigar in non-smoking buildings. He did a lot of things. He did a lot of things wrong, but he was Ken Kruger. That's all you had to say, and you go, "Oh, it's Ken Kruger. It's okay." So very early guy in the field, died a long time ago, unfortunately. So his wife, but his two sons are alive, Petey and Gus. Nice guys.
So for you taking over, will you be concentrating on a store? An in-person store?
So the basic premise is there's a traditional blood plant website, and he does a moderate amount of social media, very small. Some once a week Facebook posting, a few emails every month, but not a lot. We will intensify those efforts, and then we will bring on more different platforms for both the highly recommended books, and then what I'll call the new bud plant type of selection, which will be more the current graphic novels, trade paperback, and art of books coming out. So from my perspective, there's nothing more than walk into a store and do that eyeball shopping. That's number one. But as a fallback position, if you guys sell on the internet, I know Jesse does. I know you do, Dennis. I'm not sure about the other gentleman. I'm sorry. But Bud Plant's special. And I didn't make it that way. I'm just hoping to continue it on.
Hell yeah.
Right.
But his buying experience is unique unto itself. Maybe not the best, just unique. And if I can not screw it up and enhance it and embellish it a little bit, I'll have done my job.
Fantastic.
Now the question is, can I make any money doing it? I don't know. So I'm going to give it a good whack and see what happens.
Well, I'll tell you from my perspective, Bill, I love to hear the history of not only comics, but this industry. And I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight. Like I said, we're going to bug you even more to come on in the future. We're going to want updates on how everything is going. And I hope to see you in San Diego in 2026. Maybe we can get a bite to eat. Or
Are you going to
something together.
MegaCon, Bill?
I am not.
Okay.
My physical health is not dire, but walking shows right now is very difficult for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't need a crane. I just get tired very fast.
Yeah.
So I have to pace myself in a slower pace. I'm traditionally a high energy guy. That's no longer higher energy.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
I get high at nighttime, but that's a different high.
I was about to say,
easy.
I blame cannabis for it all.
Take
Yeah,
it easy. We want you around for a long time, Bill.
Yeah. And congratulations on winning the biggest gray beard of the show.
And
which is
I'm
very
tough to
hard
beat,
do.
but holy crap.
Well, I got a lot going on here.
There you go.
Bill, we've had you for 2 hours, man. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Good luck with everything with the Bud Plant's art books and all of your ventures in 2026 in the future. And we can't wait to have you on again, man.
Thanks so much, guys. And to the 3 retailers on the booth on the show, hats off to you guys, man. You guys are the best. You're the brothers and the sisters that run the business, and you're the community keepers. You're the place where people can go to enjoy themselves and feel free to express their desires, and keep the torch high and bright. You're the
Thanks,
best.
Bill.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. We'll
All
talk
right,
to you
guys.
soon, brother.
Thank you,
Well,
brother.
thanks so much.
Take care.
Okay.
Bill Schanes, you guys. That's pretty pretty awesome.
Man, those
I've heard
stories,
of
holy
Bill and
shit.
Steve's name throughout the years, and it's nice to have these type of people on the show on the channel to talk about the history of comics and where we come from and where we're going in the future, and especially on tonight's show where we're talking about fandom and how important it is to have a guy like Bill Schanes to talk about that is very interesting. I feel like that story about Pacific Comics and how that started is a real big idea in the world of fandom and comics, where I don't think that was such a big important thing until the time period where he knew, hey, we gotta do this something different. We were talking before the show how I felt like it wasn't until the late 60s, maybe early 70s at the earliest, where we kind of switched from being in love with the characters and starting to fall in love with the people that draw and write the characters. And Bill talking about having Jack Kirby not be his first choice to have for the
Yeah.
rollout of Pacific.
Yeah.
Talking about Dave Stevens being the guy who didn't really have anything going on at the time and wasn't a big deal, and getting him involved in how that was. And those types of stories are very important to talk about the fandom in comics.
But it's important, and I know we get a lot of grief for the gray beards, and somebody in the chat was kind of taking a swipe at the gray beards. But guys, and I'm speaking for myself here, I don't know how many years I have left. I want to spend as much time over however many years that is, sharing the stories that got me here, sharing the stories that took me from the young 13-year-old kid who bought, can't see if you see it there, my first Detective Comics, to right here. And that's what Bill gave us tonight. It's a testament to his career that he shared all of that with us. And it's now captured forever on the 100th episode of Brian's show. And thank you for giving Bill that time to be able to share that story, because those stories will be lost like tears in the rain, to quote Roy Batty. We got it here tonight. And every time I tell an old story, it's to give it to you guys for eternity, because I'm not going to be here someday. And, same with Jesse and Emmett. I don't know what you guys think about it.
Well, for me, it was a huge, because I loved the Pacific titles. You could have not put them up there. I could have named almost every single one. One I didn't bring up that I saw, the Pathways to Fantasy. The art in these books, if you haven't gone and seen a Pacific book, it was so far and above what DC and Marvel was doing. The paneling was different. The art was different. It was very different. And, Elric, just on and on. I mean, it sends chills and brings back so many memories.
I'm sorry, there is no Game of Thrones without Elric.
Probably not.
There's just so many things that because Elric was a book series that got put into comic books, and we all know George R.R. Martin is a huge comic book geek. I guarantee you he read Elric.
Oh, for sure. Because if that's what he was into, and it seems like that's what he was, they were doing a lot of fantasy books that nobody else was doing.
Yeah.
Their superheroes were very different. The horror that they were doing, there wasn't a lot of horror going on.
Alien Worlds.
All right.
Shout out to Alex with the $10 super chat. He says, happy 100th to the crew. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to everybody that's dropped support on this episode. I want to shout out Alex. I want to shout out to Official Music Pub, who dropped 20 memberships on the show. Shout out to Official Music Pub. Shout out to all of our new subscribers. We've had a bunch of new subscribers in this episode and a bunch of new members. Shout out to David Morley, who joined. Roland became a member. A lot of you guys have supported this episode alone, so thank you guys so much for that. We appreciate you.
And just to go back to that Pacific thing, you have to, and these young kids don't realize, and I apologize, I'm not trying to besmirch you, but when you look at what Marvel and DC were putting out at this time, yes, some of it was the most dynamic art, but a lot of it was just rehashed shit. You can flip through dollar boxes in 1979, 1980 and go, I don't want to read any of this, except for the X-Men, Amazing Spider-Man, some Hulk, etc. When Pacific dropped these titles, there were, and like you said, Archie, Harvey, all these other publishers, when he dropped this stuff, it jumped off of the shelves. It was something that you couldn't see from all the other publishers.
Right. So you're talking to someone here who was opening up those boxes and selling Pacific Comics when they came out.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the most distinct things in my tenure was the uniqueness of, Spider-Man, Superman, Daredevil, Contest of Champions, all this stuff that was on the shelf. And then all of a sudden you had this Elric cover, or you had this Gru cover, something that was different that drawed people to that item, away from that basic normal wall. Oh, what is this? And what we saw back in 82, 83, 84 was almost everybody had at least one or two Pacific books in their pull list. So I think not only was it great art, it was a point where people were now saying it's okay to buy
Yeah.
independent.
Well, and it's not just that, Jesse. You got to also understand the industry had discarded Kirby. The industry had discarded Gil Kane. The
Neil
industry,
Adams.
Neil Adams, like all of these guys were being shown the door in the early 70s and the mid 70s because they didn't want to pay them the rate they felt they were deserved. And like he said, I started paying those rates. I started paying a better rate, and they would do work for me because I'd let them do it.
Yeah.
He said Neil Adams just had Skate Man sitting in a drawer.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk
You
about
know?
this real quick because it's the 34th anniversary of the Image guys
Yep.
doing their stuff, which is also very similar in ways to what was going on at Pacific Comics at the time, where the focus became less about the character, more about the guys creating the
Creators.
characters, which is a big deal. It's
Yep.
that the probably the biggest moment where we've seen that fandom change, where Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Mark Silvestri, Will Portacio, Eric Larson, Valentino, like they all said
seven 9.5s walked out of the big two's doors to put it in Bill's vernacular.
and doing so, they said, hey, we think that we can sell books based on the fandom from us alone. And that's what's happened. And we see that now to this day. Now, here's the interesting thing to me. Let's take a look and talk about fandom today. We're in this weird world where I still think that there's this huge disconnect in the big publishers, especially at Marvel and DC. Not as much as Image, obviously. I think they're one of the only publisher, in my opinion, that's really doing an amazing job across the board. But the DC and Marvel are very disconnected, and I think a vast majority of the industry is disconnected on what people are buying, what they're into, what the fandom is. And a perfect example of that is something that happened this last weekend, which is Swornfest 2026, which I'm going to go ahead and just let this go ahead and play on loop. And this is something that is absolutely amazing, where the fans of not just an IP, but all the creators who have worked on said IP or has created this convention where people come from all over the world to hang out with these creators, buy art from these creators. It's something that we don't see on any other level. Brian is the first guy that, in my opinion, that's really done it. I think there's a lot of other creators that could have done it. I think J. Scott Campbell probably could have something like this. Obviously, I think Todd could. I think
Bill Schanes could have done something like this back in the day. Pacific Fest.
And the cool part about it is, it's not just a regular con feel, you guys. Like, watch this video, and you guys can see every table there, except for like two, are artists and creators. Okay. Yep. This table you're seeing right now is all the exclusives that are exclusive to the show. There you see Clan McDonald live selling on Whatnot right there during the show. That's how somebody live sells on Whatnot at this con right now, just to show everybody. This is how things have changed. And you have all these people who not only came through from around the world, they posted up at the hotel next to the convention site, which is attached. They hung out there. They talked to, everybody that was at this convention would talk to everybody else, not just to the creators. I ran into so many people. Oh, hello, how's it going? I would spend talking to so many just regular other con goers at this con. Then, like, everybody knows at the end of this con knows each other. They spend time eating together, drinking together, playing games together, talking about artists together, talking to the artists together. It's such a different feel.
Oh, shit. Hey, Emmett, you see that guy's beard?
Yeah, he's got me beat too. Hey, I'm on my way. way.
So this is like something that we don't see very often. There are people out there that I think can do this, but I don't think that they.
No, I disagree,
No,
Brian. I really don't think there's very many.
Yeah.
Like you said, Scott Campbell. What really is his
No.
lasting character?
Nope.
Like this is built around the characters that Brian created, and people have fallen in love with. Like, what are we now? 30 some odd years.
Yeah, 30 plus years.
Right.
I'm
Well,
going to
it's
tell
not
you
just
somebody
that,
who
though,
I think
but-
that has a chance to maybe do something like this, and it's another person that I know people. I know exactly the person I'm going to say, but it's the truth. And we've seen it this year in fandom, and how fandom for a person and a creator can cause needles to move in the market and in the industry, and that's Mark Spears. I mean, I don't see why this is something that Mark can't look
doesn't
at
have
and
the time,
try
man.
to.
Yeah.
Hold on, you didn't
Mark
give me the
is
chance
very
to finish. Hold on,
prolific.
you didn't give me a
Okay.
chance to finish.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why Mark can't see this and go, hey, if I continue doing what I'm doing, this could be something that I could cultivate my own convention, my own type thing
you're
built
right.
around Mark Spears monsters or
But
the
I
creators that
think-
he's or the characters he's
No.
creating.
I don't think
Right.
so.
But this is not just a culmination of the IP of Brian Pulido, but it's about the community that Brian Pulido has brought with him. All of these guys do covers for his IP. There are people who he has built around him, especially in that Arizona community. I think Mark can get there, but I don't necessarily think Mark should be an island on his own. You've got to build and everybody loves Mark's work, and he's able to do so much. And I'm not trashing Mark, but I just think this is something that you build over a decade, 2 decades.
Yeah.
Every person that's ever worked with Mark or with Brian is here.
Right. Yeah. Here's the thing with being sworn with Coffin Comics. When you're sworn, you're a part of a community. What you're seeing right here is just one day in the life of a sworn member. They live this every single day in their Facebook groups, their private groups. When people come to this, cool, I can go in there, but they're hanging out with people they've known for 20 years now in this cult that collect everything.
You guys
For
don't think
anybody else?
you guys
Hold
don't
on one
think that
second.
somebody can start this?
Hold on 1 second. So can someone do this? Yes, it takes decades to create a cult-like, like-minded group of fans.
And then
And
Mark
that's
is
what
also
you
the
need.
only artist, right? So
Right.
if he threw it, every single person would be in line just for him.
Right, exactly.
Like,
So
they wouldn't get this opportunity to see like all the different artists and
right, exactly. So can it be done? Yes, but we are looking at people that are hot that would have to have a team that is creating this synergy 24/7, 7 days a week, nonstop, keeping this community together. Look how many people are wearing black there, right? I'm surprised there are people not wearing black shirts. But at the end of the day, you're cultivating every single day, not to sell a book, but to sell a great community that comes together as one.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. And listen, we would love to have Mark be able to do this, but I think Mark has a lot on his plate. But when he gets to that structure where he has 20 employees, 30 employees, and you got that social networking going every single day, that's how you do this.
Go ahead.
And as prolific as Mark is, he doesn't have 30 years of books.
No.
There's nobody out there that has 30 years. There's very few people out there that have 30 years of books.
Exactly. That's why there's a Sworn Fest.
Yeah.
Well, but and I'll just say this: I would love to see that in the next year to 2 years, Mark Spears builds a big enough brand that he can bring in other artists to the Mark Spears universe and start cultivating them to do B covers.
That's what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that Mark's can do this now. I'm saying
no,
this
no,
is
that's-
something
No,
that I
we
think
understand
Mark
that
can
part.
build.
We
I think that
understand that.
any creator can build this if
Absolutely.
they try.
Absolutely.
It takes that effort. It's just
Right.
like people saying, oh, but for example, I've had people say, oh, but it's easy for you because you have a podcast and you have a podcast. I didn't just start this. I didn't just
Right.
start this. This has taken me 10 years to do this. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
And
obviously nobody out there is just going to start this that we're seeing here. This takes time. But there is a
Right.
reason to start thinking about doing this,
Yes.
to see this and go, hey, that's something that I want to achieve. And
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's important in a major way. And the
Right.
reason why I say this is because the fandom is what's pushing people to spend their money now, right?
Yes.
For
Right.
example, here's a perfect example, and let's use Mark again. If Mark never went on any shows and you just heard about him and heard, hey, there's this guy doing this comic, do you think Mark would be as successful as he is now?
No, it would take him
No, no.
twice or 3 times as long.
Yeah.
Not even
Yeah.
close.
It's
Sure.
because people
He's
became
closed
fans
that
of
gap.
Mark. They went
Yeah.
from being, hey, I love this guy's art and I think his covers are great, to going, hey, I saw him on a show and I really like that guy. I'm going to actually check out the inside of this book, or I'm going to check out, I heard he actually wrote the storyline. I heard he actually did the interiors. You fall in love with Mark after seeing Mark on a show or seeing him on social
Yeah.
media or seeing him on his IG
Right.
talk about his book. And people are going, okay, now I'm not just a fan of the Universal Monsters lore and that look, and I'm not just a fan of his style and his art.
His
I'm a
homages.
fan of him. I want to
Right, and
support
you know how
Mark. I don't
Mark
just
gets
want to
this
support
done?
the monsters. I want to support
Right.
Mark. Just like people are going,
Sure.
hey, I don't want to just support Lady Death. I want to support Brian. I want to support Mike Chrome. I want to support
Right.
E-Boss. I want to support Marissa Pope and Mike DeBalfo. They're
Yep.
supporting. That's where the fandom is. And I think that it's very important for creators, the industry, for people out there that want to make money in this industry to recognize that that is where it is right now. That moves the needle more than ever,
Right.
especially
And
with
you
social
know how
media.
Mark Spears gets to that level you're talking about? He does a cover for Brian Pulido and he's at the next Sworn Fest. And he creates that. At some point, your brand has to be part of someone else's brand that has the same mindset of success in the future. Right? He's with a company right now that might not be looking at the 10 years from now, 15 years from now. But I think if he starts connecting himself that route, this is very feasible within 10 years, within 12 years. And that's if he wants to do it. The person has to want to do it too.
Yeah.
We
I
can't
think
just
you hit on the biggest point.
Yeah.
Right now, he's saddled with a company that does not have his back, and that's why Brian Pulido has his own company.
Yeah,
He has
exactly.
his own crowdfunding.
Yeah, but
with
not. But I
Coffin Launch.
understand. I understand why somebody has to jump in and find that company. Brian Pulido just didn't just go, "Hey, I want
Right.
to
Oh,
create
yeah.
this." He
got
jumped in with
fucked
other
over by
companies.
multiple companies prior to coming to this point.
But
Yeah, let's not even get
Jesse
started
brought
on
up
that
something
way.
interesting
Yeah.
that when you said, it basically that this is an identity. Fandom
Yep.
equals identity. It's not just
Yeah.
it's not just purchasing. It's everything about Sworn Nation. It is, they live it. It's
Yep.
more than just them buying
They will
comics.
go to war for Brian Pulido.
Yes.
And they have.
And they
And they
feel a
have.
sense of belonging. They feel a sense of belonging that
Yeah.
drives
Everybody's always
repeat.
looking for their tribe.
It-
Every person's looking
yes,
for their tribe.
and it drives repeat buying. These guys are going to spend money at Confest because not just because they want to get cool stuff. It's part of their tribe. This is their tribe. This is what they enjoy. This is what they look forward to. This is one of the biggest events of the year for them. This is where they get to go hang out with all their friends and see other people. It's
Exactly.
a big part of them. And Sworn Nation and Sworn Fest as models is something really smart that the industry needs to key in on, in my opinion.
I think I actually did think of somebody that could probably pull this off, and that would be Kirkman. With if he did a Skybound one, he might be able, and it wouldn't be the same feeling because this is more of a lifestyle.
Yeah.
but a lot of people would come, like you're talking about Walking Dead exclusives and Invincible exclusives and like all this other stuff. And it would draw a big, I think a Skybound could do their own just on Kirkman's work.
Right. Now, keep in mind, they did do this. Image Comics
Expo.
did have Image Expo in 2012 through 2014.
Yeah. But I
Was
don't
that-
think Image as a whole is the same draw as Kirkman alone, believe it or
Right.
not.
No, I get that. I get that. So it has been tried, right?
Right.
This is
Oh
trust me.
God, look, that girl's crying and getting hugged.
Oh yeah, trust me. The day this ended on Sunday, Monday they already started planning for next year.
Oh yeah.
This is a monster.
Well, Brian redesigned his offices, his what does he call it? The Sworn Compound.
The
I forget.
club.
No, but
Clubhouse?
he calls it like Swarm HQ or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's HQ. It's HQ.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he has redesigned that to turn it into a museum
I
for
love
these
those.
guys. And it's almost Mecca for Polito fans.
Well, I think more than anything, it also shows that sales convert, like fandom converts sales across multiple platforms, if that makes sense. You have
of course, but it
original
also
art, you
creates
have
higher
video
margins.
game art, you have
Right.
music, you have fashion, like, and it all shows up here. All these different platforms, ways to make
Yeah.
money. By the way,
Nice.
Oh, nice. You got your coin.
Yeah.
let's see it. I want to see it, boys.
Oh,
Well, I don't
got
have this.
I want to
year's.
see it. I want to see one. You better show me one. You guys are buying me a drink.
Yeah.
one. I'll buy you all a drink.
Yeah. There you go.
I haven't made it out.
This
But-
one.
Yeah.
This one came from Brian's pocket directly.
Well, that's pretty special. So here's what I want to say about this. Here's another example of how Sworn Nation rocks. We go to the show, and my whole thing was, I told Brian, I go, my whole reason for going this year is to get me a fucking challenge, Sworn Fest challenge coin. So I get my coin. We walk around the con for a little bit. We go hit the bar. Me, Leg, and his fiance sit down at the bar. As soon as I sit down, there's a table behind us. The guy from the table behind me pulls up behind me, pulls out his challenge coin. He goes, I'm feeling a little thirsty right now. And I go, not today, brother.
Yeah.
Not
there you go.
today. So
Yeah.
that is a perfect example of how
Brotherhood.
fandom is across multiple platforms. This type of thing is fandom, and it pushes the fandom. It brings the fellowship together, the brotherhood together. This is super important. This type of thing is beyond important. Like you talked about, Emmett. Especially men, the tribe thing is real. That is ingrained in us. We need to find our tribe.
This started with the armed forces with the challenge coins.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Navy.
Yeah, that's what I
And it
mean.
was
Yeah.
to prove your
Yep.
brotherhood. It was to prove your your
Yep.
And it actually comes a little from masonry, which I'm a mason. So it's a natural evolution when you get to Brian's size of his army that you get the challenge coin level. And Billy Tucci's same thing. Billy Tucci's troopers, I have two Tucci coins back here. In fact, actually, I made Tucci's coin holder. So it's a natural evolution, and it's great to see Brian at this level now. He doesn't have to go set up at San Diego, although he does. This is his own San Diego.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So
You got to continue to make sworn members. It's all about growth, right? So like you go to San Diego to introduce people that are there to discover, right? I always thought the conventions and the comic shops about discovery.
Right.
And if they can discover you there and then they become a member and then they go to get their challenge coin like Brian did. And, I think that's the exciting part, man.
You know what you know what makes a great leader at conventions, and I'll say this about Brian, is when you walk up to his table, you know what the first thing Brian does? He walks from behind the table out to you to talk to you. There's no greater respect to a consumer by taking away that barrier and getting right in front of them. And I hope some of you creators out there start to learn that table is a barrier. It doesn't sound like 4 feet is a lot of space, right?
We used to call it when I was a booking agent. We used to call it the thick black line because we always had black tablecloth over it.
Yeah.
And whenever you can break that thick black line and come around to the table and say, "Oh man, thanks for coming out," and you can't do it when there's 100 people in line all the time.
Right.
But when you have that one-on-one experience on the other side, it makes you different from the other people who demand that thick black line.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's awesome. I think fandom is in different levels.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you have IP fandom, you have creator fandom, you have fandom of just comics, toys, cards in general, and how they overlap. You have nostalgia driven fandom, like all of our fandoms different depending on when we grew up and what our nostalgia is, and how our emotional connection fuels that. And that emotional connection also fuels the value that we give on the things that we buy in the fandom that we go after. There's this huge emotional connection to that, and if you can figure out a way to harness that within your fandom that you're trying to create, that's very important. Across the board, you have, I look at my fandom. Obviously, started with me being a kid in G.I. Joe and collecting Garbage Pail Kids, to Star Wars, which that fueled my fandom throughout my teenage years, and then falling in love with comic books fueled my fandom. Vertigo fueled my fandom as I was getting older into teenage years, and I found these comic books that were a little bit meant for me, or that mindset, that time period. Music filled that fandom. Everything about, so much about our lives is fandom, right? That it's such, and
it's the reason we're all here.
Yeah. So I just hope that the industry realizes how important it is to cultivate that fandom in the right ways. I think the industry is not cultivating it in the right way. The industry has not caught on to how important this part of the world is, and we talk about this every show, and I'll continue to beat it like a dead horse, is that the industry doesn't realize how, where fandom has taken the fans to look for their tribe and their brothers and their fellowship is right here, right? Because we don't get to go to comic shops as much. And ever since COVID and they shut everything down, it still hasn't returned where everybody would go.
The key is creating new fans every day.
Yeah.
Where there
new
was
comic
none.
shops.
Yep.
Yeah, I think where the disconnect is the industry itself feels that the comic book store's job is to create the fandom, not realizing that they need to be a partner in that. And I think that's where we grow, creating a bigger fandom is, hey, do you have that thing Marvel announced? Do you have that thing DC announced? They say, come to the comic book store, right? And so we're not always the front line on every single thing. I think we do need the industry to kind of come up, these publishers, to kind of say, hey, we're going to be in the front lines with you. We're just not going, we're going to sell you stuff, but we're then be in the front lines with you. Right now, they're just selling us stuff.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is, if you were hiring a marketing team, would you hire guys who own comic book shops? I mean, we're good hustlers. We can market a little bit locally, but like, they're depending on us to market their multi-billion-dollar company's product.
Well, I think our guest
which they would never hire us.
I think our guest tonight made it very fucking plain and simple. He was buying and selling comic books. He was buying new DC and new Marvel when he opened his comic shop. He created his own publishing company and became Pacific Comics for a reason. The market he was seeing was not being served by the big two.
Have you guys been following what's going on with Markiplier and the Iron Lung film?
No, but out of nowhere, my son decided to go see a movie with a bunch of his friends, and they went to go see Iron Lung, and I'd never even heard of it. That movie went from Thursday and Friday to the second showing in our theater.
Yep.
To the primary screen on Saturday and Sunday.
So let me give you just a quick rundown of. So
please tell me, because my son wouldn't even tell me what the fuck it was.
So the basics are, just for your guys' information, there's this guy named Markiplier. He's a big content creator on YouTube and social media. Massive content creator. He's got 20 million fucking followers, something like that. He's up there like Mr. Beast and shit. And he basically made one of his old content was playing this game called Iron Lung, where it's basically a really easy game where you're in a submersible that you're a convict, and they put you in a submersible, they shoot you to a planet they don't know anything about and drop you in this ocean to try and figure out what's going on at that planet, and you have to figure out what's going on, and you play this game. And he played the game on his YouTube channel, like acting like he was the real convict, and played the game, and it was this great content that he did. And he decided to make a movie out of it, and he made this movie where he filmed it all in his own little room, did everything. I'm gonna play you the trailer for this, okay? And I'm gonna play you a little bit from him. Check this out.
I see that question in your eyes. For what purpose do we remain alone in the dark?
Beginning the descent. Cruising depth in roughly 2 minutes. Stand by.
I ask myself that very same question.
I'm seeing some voltage irregularities on the instruments, so keep an eye out for sparks or flames or anything like that.
Why would there be flames? You did test this thing, right?
This is Markiplier right here. He's playing the main role, and he is playing. He did everything basically. Main role, filmed it, everything. So I just want to continue.
This is the test. Closing porthole shielding.
Where's the reason for this quiet rapture? Too few to rebuild, too many to feed.
You're the first one down. All we have are surface scans. That's why you're there.
Great narrator.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the reasons.
That narrator is just like the game, except in the game it's a male voice, and they added to it, but it's just like from the game. If you go watch from 3 years ago him playing the game, it's amazing to see where they took it. I'll continue.
Not just to see all of us. We need this.
There aren't enough of us left to be throwing lives away, but there is too much at stake not to take calculated risks. Ian doesn't understand that. You don't understand that.
Okay, so that is basically the trailer of the movie, right? And through Fandom, he got the movie put into theaters across the country, right? Small theaters that said, "Hey, we'll put it in for a couple of days. We'll see how it does." They put it in for a couple of days, and Markiplier's fans came out en masse and watched the movies. It was good. People heard about it. Word of mouth started going out. It became the #1 movie in the country. But the movie industry won't report on it, okay? Right? They won't talk about it. It was it's such a big deal that most of the theaters that reached out to him said, "We're going to continue having it into our theaters until it it's not popular anymore. Check this out.
Right.
So this is funny. This is on Friday. The box office numbers. I'm number one, right? I milked it a lot. I said it. It was very funny. I knew that Sam Raimi's movie was going to pass me eventually by the end of the weekend, but I was like, haha, I'm number one. But then I didn't see this yesterday, but here's Saturdays. So this is Saturday, right? I swear I was on this list, but Iron Lung isn't here anymore. There's no numbers for Iron Lung. They took me off the chart. And I thought, hey, maybe that's a fluke. maybe there's something wrong, but here's Sunday. I wake up this morning, which reports the day before his numbers. I'm gone.
$5.7 million it made over the weekend. This is based on Fandom. This is fueled by Fandom. And the movie industry doesn't want to admit it. So even though it made money, and they can figure out ways how to make money with the same model and probably make a ton of profit over cost. How much money did it cost to make that movie versus what it brought in? Probably the numbers are crazy, the percentages compared to what Hollywood does. But Hollywood and the quote-unquote industry doesn't want to admit it, and they're losing out on it. And the industry is going to hurt from it. The whole movie industry is going to hurt because the gatekeepers, quote unquote gatekeepers, don't want to admit that this works. And maybe we're wrong in how we're doing things. And I use that to say, I feel like a lot of the comic book industry, that model is what we're seeing with the comic book industry. Nobody knew. You talked to a lot. Marvel didn't know who Mark Spears was when Mark Spears was selling 350,000 comics in a month.
Yeah, I think one of the things that this industry does not do is they fail to recognize the success of Kickstarters. Kickstarters are new issues, but if they admit that Kickstarters are where you go, guess what? That hurts the industry selling new issues because that's not how we normally do it. That's not how we process books. But the Kickstarter industry, where people are spending, you know, 200, 300, 400, 500,000, $1 million, $2 million, whatever it is, the industry doesn't make money off that. Why? Because they don't know how to partner on something like that because it makes them second tier. It's okay to be second tier in this business every once in a while. So I think at the end of the day, Blair Witch Project is a great example of something hitting the theaters, rocking it out.
There's been a lot. That's why so much horror gets made, because it's super cheap to make and it's very profitable.
Zabit says, I don't know if you saw this, Brian, but Markiplier said it made so much money that he was able to give every person involved in the movie bonuses. The theaters that played the movie got a 50% split. And he said in the end, everyone won.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, corporations don't want everyone to win.
You got it.
Yeah.
They don't want everyone to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a corporate company, you want to control the narrative, you want to control the funds, you want to control social, you want to technically control down to your team members. And I think, you know, it's very tough for the comic book industry to say, hey, Jesse, we want you to put Absolute Batman in an A+ position. I'll put it where I want to put it. Right. We're not structured that way.
No.
And I think that's the challenges that we face. Look at every store right now, every gas station across the nation. I'm going to say 70% have Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
It is crazy. Why don't they have comic books?
Dennis, his thing, he dropped out and then he tried to come back in and it said device is not connected. So his camera or something must have died on him. So hopefully he'll come back. But I look at what's going on and how important the fandom is. I see things like this and all these things that I keep saying and that I keep seeing and I keep hearing from people who are successful in this world and in this industry. Fandom is such a big part of it, and the same fandom the big industry doesn't see. And that's not just Marvel and DC, you guys. That's Image,
everybody.
That's Keenspot, that's Dynamite, that is every publisher out there. They still have things that they do that doesn't make sense to me because, like I said, I think they're stuck in the past, and how things used to work aren't the same as how they work today. And the things that didn't work then might end up working better today, right? There's so many examples of things that I see where sometimes I'll see, I talk about it all the time, and when I do like New Comic Book Day or FOC, I'll see these publishers putting out books, and obviously, you know, most of the time I'm talking about covers, right? Because covers, as we know how this channel works, I talk about secondary market sales and prices on the secondary market, and that is pushed a lot by cover art these days. A lot of people, like I've said at the time, I don't think they're reading their books that they buy for the most part. They're buying them for cover and art buys. And I see some of these covers, and I see some of these art buys, or some of these covers that they're putting on, and I'm going, that is terrible. Like I don't see anybody buying that. Now I get it that my it's subjective, my love of the art. But listen, I think for a lot of people, if you spend a lot of time in comics, you can kind of gauge what is going to sell and what is not going to sell if you're constantly talking about the hot stuff. If I wasn't constantly talking about what is hot and what is selling, I wouldn't know this stuff. But because I do, and I constantly talk about it, I know that right now, if you put Mark on a cover, it's more than likely going to sell. If you put Sveta on a cover, it's more than likely going to sell. If you put, Carla Cohen on a cover, it's going to, like, there's certain people you put on a cover that's going to sell. That's obvious to me. With a lot of other publishers, it's not only not obvious, they don't even know who half the people I'm talking about are.
Right. Well, I think one of the things that the big errors I see at conventions is back in the day, me and Dennis know this, that every publisher had a booth, and guess what? They had every creator at their booth.
Amen.
Yep.
Amen. Yep. Yes.
Now that creator has to find a way to get comped at a convention.
Yes.
Yep.
And then they're pimping out that publisher's booth.
Yeah.
That is amazing how publishers have lost.
But at the same time, I agree with you on that, Jesse. But I feel like some publishers have decided not to go to cons. You know, I think last year.
There's a certain disconnect. There's a certain disconnect with the conventions not loving having more publishers, first of all. So a publisher has to pay the same amount as Hollywood.
I don't know if that's true, but if that's true, that
at San Diego, it's sure as hell true.
Right. Yeah. And so my point is, if I'm XYZ Comics and I have Ebass, Mike DeBalfo, and Don Mateague, and I'm going to get a booth at Phoenix Con, and it's going to say XYZ Comics, and guess who's going to be at that booth? Those three. I don't have to go, but I'm going to make sure it's paid for, they're taken care of, and so that they're promoting with my name in the background. And that's how you market. I don't understand this sending off people by themselves.
Look, I mean, I'm in business, right? So I'm out to make profit, but I think it's gotten out of control.
Dennis, your mic. Remember, every time you move it. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's gotten out of control. I mean, what these guys want to sign a book now, and I get it because Marvel and DC are not paying them enough, right? They're still paying them what they were paying them 15 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And now they have to make all this extra money, but it's on the backs of the fandom. And then how long, sometimes then the fans are like, it comes to a point that you feel like, you're just being soaked.
Right.
And
yeah, but I think if I'm XYZ Comics, I'm making sure my team is making money, and so that they don't have to charge.
Right.
They're going to get their nut. They're then get more comics out for XYZ Comics.
1,000%.
Yeah, exactly.
That should be the focus.
Right.
It's like when I took my son to a Mets game. Okay. My son's 35 now. So he was 12. So this is quite a long time ago. The tickets were on the first baseline, and it cost me like $126 a seat 20 years ago. We went so early, they were doing batting practice and, warming up out front.
Yeah, sure.
And my kid being Puerto Rican wanted the Puerto Rican player to sign his ball. He's on the edge of the thing, and the guy's just kind of stretching and warming up, and he's screaming his name and screaming his name. They wouldn't come over
Hell no.
and give a free autograph to a kid that came to a park, to a family that now has spent, you know, including food and all, I guess, and parking and everything and tolls to get there. I think I was in at $500. If that motherfucker doesn't think $500 is worth a signature on a ball, you know, this is where the fandom starts to get out of control.
You know what?
And the guy ends up being out of baseball in 5 years. So, you know, it not like his autograph would be worth shit.
You know what's changed that? See, at that time period, and I was growing up going to games at the same time period. I remember the first time I saw Ken Griffey Jr. at a spring training game. He was walking out. He didn't have anything in his hands. It was like 2 hours before the game. He was doing nothing. He could have walked over. There was 4 or 5 kids asking for him to come over and sign, and he looked at us and he laughed and he walked away. And I agree.
Jerry
I've
Maguire.
been there. I've seen that. But here's what's different now, and this is what's interesting with the fandom in baseball that we could look at in the world of, or in fandom in sports that we can look at in the world of comics. Okay. A lot of these guys who are now coming up in the world of sports, guess what they did when they were kids? They collected Pokemon cards. So they're into Pokemon cards, okay? So they already are into the collecting and the fandom of Pokemon cards, that they know, okay, this is important to collecting is a big thing. So now a lot of these young baseball players are going, hey, these kids are into collecting my cards. I'm going to make it a point to not only go sign cards of theirs, that's going to be part of what I do. So a lot of the smart baseball players, Josh Young, Corbin Carroll, Bobby Witt, all these super major stars are signing cards and putting cool little notes on them and, you know, like doing stuff, going to card shops and buying free, like that's happening in the sports card world. It could happen in the comic world on a better basis, but the industry doesn't see it in that same terms anymore. For whatever reason, I don't get that.
Right.
Well, and it's not just that. They make excuses for why they don't want to do it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's always our fault. It's all
Yeah.
us, retailers and dirty flippers, right? Because we're
Right.
just getting the autographs so we can make more money.
Right.
Well, you know what's funny?
You pretty
Emmett?
much can tell the difference between a fan and a.
You know what's funny about that? At Swornfest, there was something very interesting that happened that I haven't seen at other cons in the last 5 years that I've gone to. Every single creator there that was signing was $5 or less. Dan Mendoza was signing for $1. Okay.
Yep.
When I would walk up and Leg, that's part of Leg's business now, right? Leg is a retailer that goes to cons, gets autographs, and will sell autograph books on his live sales. That's Leg's business, okay? So Leg brought a bunch of books to Swornfest. That's why he came, to get a bunch of autographs. Every single creator that I was with, when he walked up and had them, they brought up, he would go, how much are you charge to thing? And some of them go, I don't charge anything. And he'd be like, really? And they'd be like, oh yeah, like you need to make money too. I don't know how many creators at Swornfest I heard say, oh no,
Well,
but
Brian's
you guys
paying
got to
his
make
people
money
that.
too.
Right. Exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
like
right.
that was
Brian's
unbelievable.
really paying his people.
Yeah. Right. Brian
crazy.
really pays.
That's great to hear, man. That
and he
warms my heart.
pays. That's the difference. You can
Yeah.
give anybody a rate, but he actually pays. And I think that's very, very important. I have said this many times throughout 100 shows, that how much does Marvel make when a 7.0 AF-15 sells for $100,000? How much money do they make on that? Absolutely zero. So their interest in the secondary market is zero.
Yeah,
right?
but they're idiots
So-
because they don't realize
can't-
that the
they really
word of
can't have-
mouth and the marketing that
Yeah.
creates is invaluable to them.
Yeah, they
Right.
really can't be involved in the secondary market though, because it is not 100% legal if you're manipulating the secondary market. It isn't. Magic the
it's-
Gathering is very, very like they're like stocks and bonds, and they cannot pay attention to the secondary market.
I don't know about that. I know that all I know is with like sports cards, they have to have hit rates on the back of their packs.
Yep.
Other than that,
Yeah,
I don't
and-
know
and-
anything about laws
Yeah.
on
No, but
secondary market and with comics.
Well, the thing is that like the comic company itself, DC couldn't go, oh, here's this new comic. It's going to be only 1 of 50. We're only going to make 1 of 50. And they keep 25 until the first 25 hit double or triple the value. And then they release the other ones at that double or triple value.
I want to answer. I want to talk. If anybody has any questions or anything in the chat, I'm going to keep an eye on the chat of some of the things that you guys are putting in there now. But this is a comment that I want to bring up. Alva Flash says, the issue is that the majority of comic book buyers only buy old comics. The older buyers just sit on old comics and don't invest on running up cool and rare modern comics. I don't know what that means. Do you guys have any thought on that?
Well,
Running up the value
that's a simple answer. The traditional comic collector doesn't care about value. You could be in a store all day and you could bring, someone, hey, I'm selling my collection. Okay, what you got? Oh, I don't know. What is it worth? Oh, I don't know. I need space. So the traditional comic book collector, and we're talking about 35 years and older, does not care about value. They care about completing their collections. And that's a majority, right? 75, 80%. That 20% that cares about value, I think that's what he's talking about, is they're buying those books, they're investing in those books, and they're not reselling them. They're not hitting the secondary market at all, which is fine because every book is made in vast amounts. So it's okay if Johnny doesn't sell his book. That's not going to determine the market value.
And running up modern books is not a sustainable market.
Right, exactly. I mean, they don't hold their value. I mean, what's the last modern book to hold its value beyond 5 years?
I'm sure there's something that
25, 30 books.
I'm sure there's some that are out there. I mean,
he didn't say, he said there'd be like 25, 30 books, and that would be the maximum. And there's probably 40 that come out a week.
Yeah.
Right. 40 is probably a low number of what comes out a week.
Yeah.
So if 25 or 30 of them are only keeping it that past 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And there's always that's always been a thing. There's only a few modern books a week that are worthy of flipper status or flipping status. That's why you watch the House of Stein Hot 10. That's why you watch Beyond Wednesdays to find out the books. A perfect example is KA says, I buy all Dan Mora and Nightwing books now. Why does he buy all Dan Mora and Nightwing books now? Because we've been showing that all the Dan Mora and Nightwing books have been selling like crazy on the secondary market. You know what I mean? Right. I'm sure he's not buying Dan Mora Nightwing books because he's a massive Dan Mora fan or he's a massive Nightwing fan. He could be. But, we've shown that, hey, Nightwing books and Dan Mora books and these sweater weather books have been selling like crazy. So if you can buy in at them for cheap and wait a couple months, they might be a $6 buy-in and a $200 sale. So that pushes sales on said type of books, and I don't understand why the industry doesn't see it that way.
Because in 2 years, that's not a $200 book.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and that's why I said if you're in there for the long haul, which in the old days everybody was in it for the long haul. Now you got these guys that might never open up a page in a comic book.
And you can't have it both ways. And Brian, I love your shows, so don't take this too offensive. I hear on all of the other collectors shows, why won't these retailers sell us this variant at ratio? And so we're supposed to sell at ratio, but now we're also supposed to drive the market up to keep the market high by buying them at over retail.
Well, here's real quick. I want to talk about what Emmett said, that he said that book in a couple years won't be worth $200. Well, I want to show you, it might not be a couple years. This came out in 2023, and it's not maybe not $200. It was just a B cover, and now it's $100 book. That's 2 years ago. You know what I mean?
I have that book on my wall for like $10, I think.
So there you go. Take it off right now, or somebody go to the Wonder World Comics and buy this book for $10. You can flip it for $100. It just sold yesterday, 2 days ago, for $99. You know what I mean? Like $110 on a Dan Mora, just a regular open order variant from 2024. It might not be $200 in 2 years, but these are the outliers, and that's why you watch this. And this is going to push Dan Mora's Nightwing sales.
But Brian, let me also explain to you what we all lived through. We all lived through an era in the 90s where a magazine called Wizard told us all our comic book that we paid $2 for was worth $20. And when the people who wanted to get that $18 profit brought them to the comic retailers up here, we wouldn't buy that anywhere near 18. And that's what caused the market to crash. So, and you're just reporting what the sales are. You know, Dan Mora equals $100. But the thing is it's
no, not just Dan Mora equals $100. Dan Mora Nightwing 105 variant cover B equals $100.
I know.
Right now.
But what I'm saying is,
what is the average? Like, that's one sale. What is the average sales of that cover over the last couple of months?
There we go.
Because I'm telling you that's trending down.
It might be trending down, but what I'm saying is it's a two.
Well, why would I buy a book that's trending down?
Because you can buy it for $10 at Dennis's shop today, sell it tomorrow for $100 on eBay. It doesn't matter if it's trending down. It doesn't matter if it's trending down. You can flip it. And I'm not saying everybody.
But the three of us are never going to pay anywhere near.
You're not.
I wouldn't pay $40.
You're not. But there are people out there that would. That's the
right, and that's
thing.
up to the fandom to decide. That
Exactly.
Dan Mora,
Exactly.
No, and exactly. But no, the person that this conversation is based off asked a question: why won't retailers buy up this stock and keep the price inflated? And we're trying to explain. It's up to the fans to decide that Dan Mora cover B of 105 is a $100 book.
So I pay 40%. If somebody brought that single book in and said, "Hey, this sold for $100, I'll take 40," I wouldn't buy it.
Right. Well, I think what you have to look at is how many of those books sold for $100. If 10 books sold, are we going to gauge the market on 10 books? What is the number that we can start gauging a value of a book on?
You know what? Can I tell an old man story?
There's something wrong with your mic. Is Dennis's mic off? Am I hearing something wrong?
Oh, geez.
It just sounds like he's in kind of a tin can.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll make this quick. When I first started buying G.I. Joe comic books, that was kind of the first of my collecting. I picked up issue 18. I picked up issue 19. I picked up issue 20. I missed 21. And when I filled in all the gaps, I had to buy 2 and 21. And at that time, 2 was a scarce book worth $100.
Yep.
But I knew a guy who had 2 and 21. 21 was a $5 book, and 2 was a $100 book, and he sold it to me for $25. I had my mom write a check instantly for $30 so I could have those 2 books, and I filled in all my gaps. Where's those books today?
I bet you they're more than what you paid for it.
Yeah.
Well, no, exactly.
Not number 2.
I bet you it is.
Because 2, no, believe it or
not. Depends on what cover.
What grade was it?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been like an 8.0.
So let's say near mint. Near mint.
Yeah.
Very fine.
8.0 of 2 first print. It has to be the first print because they made 1 million of the second print.
Okay, hold on.
Print, yeah.
Let's take a look. Let's use, of course.
But the point is 21 consistently has gone up since I bought that book in 1985.
$30. A newsstand first edition just sold for $30.
$5. It's gone
$30.
$5.
Another one sold. So it's still more. This 21. One $3. But what I'm getting at is you can. Oh, it's a second print.
Yeah,
and that's a first print. That anybody near Port Dennis can come buy it for $20.
Now
So-
look up 21.
But what I'm getting at is both of those have gone up in value from what you paid for them. They haven't
Right.
gone down in value for those two.
Well, no, but I got a deal on number
Right.
2.
Doesn't
'Cause
matter
that's
though.
what-
That's
plus-
good. That's awesome. That's the point. For
If
example,
I paid $100 though, it
so
would have
here's
gone down.
here's a good example. I talk about these books all the time, right? About these books selling for these prices, right? I'm not a retailer, but I make money selling comics on live sales and collectibles on live sales. I talk about, hey, these books are selling for this on a regular basis all the time on eBay proper. Okay. Am I trying to sell these people these books at these prices? Fuck no. I know that they want to get a deal too. So what do? Okay, I'm going to start them at a third of the price that they're selling for. I'm going to start them at half of the price they're selling for. I know I'm not going to get full price for these. So nobody out there should always think that they're going to get full price for something, right? Full secondary
Right.
market value for it.
But that's not how business works. Business is based on margins, not by charging a third. So that book, hold on, let me finish. That book that you paid, technically, let's just say you paid $5 for, right? So if you sell it for half of value, $50, right? You made $45. Is your margin not more important than saying, well, I'm going to start this off at a third and
I
maybe
think-
I get X, Y, Z?
I think it depends on how you run your business. I think everybody else has different business. I think the brick and mortar retailer shop owner business is different than the online seller business, is different from the con seller business, is different from the retailer variant game. I think it's all different in how you run your business. That's my opinion.
Right.
Obviously, but I'm not a retailer, so I don't
Right,
know about this. I don't know
But this,
what to think.
but-
But I think that there's a
but-
vast majority of retailers out there that run their businesses differently.
right, they can run their business any way they want. But if margins and profit is not your number one priority, well, other than best customer service, then you shouldn't be doing this,
Mm.
right? It's about making a profit. And so if you don't sell it for 99, but I paid $1 and I sell it for 60 and I made $59 versus that sitting on the shelf cost me money for being there,
Yep.
that's not a good business
But that's
model.
what I'm
You
saying,
have to
like-
sell your book.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not sitting on the shelf. If you say,
Right.
hey, this is available, it sells for this much on the secondary market. I'm going to give you a deal because I know my margin was $5. It sells for $100. The last sale was a day ago for $100. The sale before that was a day and a half ago for $110, and the sale before that was 2 days ago for $115. I know I got this for $5 in my head. I'm going to start it for 25 or 30. That to me is a big majority of the game in retailer
Right,
world
but
that I know.
let me-
that I know.
Let me reverse that.
If you're depending on cash flow, you're not in business.
Right.
When you start a business, of course, that's where you start. But if after 5 years you have to sell everything you created this week to go into next week, you are not in business. You
Well,
are
Don't
running
you
a
think
hobby.
that there's a big majority of retailers who, at least, I don't know if it's that way anymore, but I feel like there's a big majority of retailers that live on that model you're talking about.
No, if
And
they've survived, if they've been around since COVID, since pre-COVID, and they survived through that and they're still around, there's no way they're living on that model.
I don't know about
They
that.
have
man.
money.
Right.
I don't know
So
about that.
I'm going to reverse what you just said, Brian, just
Okay.
for the sake of it.
Uh-huh.
You paid $5. You sell it for 75. You just explained the last three sold for 115, 120, and 110. Did you lose money because it didn't sell for 120?
No, I made
Oh, you lost
$55.
There's your point. There's your
Yeah.
point
Yeah,
right
you
there.
made money, but the replacement value, you can't
Right.
resell that book. It's
Yeah,
gone.
you're-
now,
Yeah,
but-
exactly.
but-
so
right?
that's
So
what you
to
want
buy
to
it
look at.
back, what's the buyback price? It's anything.
But that's
like-
not that's not the game anymore. The game isn't that anymore. The game is not, at least your guys' game isn't that way. And tell me if I'm thinking wrong. Your guys' game isn't that way because you guys aren't. The vast majority of the stuff that you guys are selling is not new product.
Well,
Correct.
new
But I
product
don't-
is supposed to be.
There's no
100%.
replacement value for new product because
Yeah,
I can only
it's
order
done.
it and get it for that week.
So that's what I'm saying. Like you guys aren't selling. So and that's what I'm. Am I missing something here when I talk about the am I wrong here? Chat, let me know. Am I thinking wrong here?
I think what's coming across is you're saying that book is worth 120.
No,
I
I'm saying
want
it's
to try to-
currently selling for 120. I'm not
Right,
saying
exactly.
what it's worth and what it's selling for. Like
Right,
you can
exactly.
decide what worth is in your opinion.
Let's take that. Let's take the life cycle of that Nightwing 105 cover B. So a retailer had to buy that, and I'm going to assume that it's a $3.99 book, and it cost the retailer $2. Just a standard fare.
Mm-hmm.
Your mileage may vary.
Mm-hmm.
The retailer bought that for $2. He put it on his shelf for $4. The customer bought that for $4. Then takes it over here. Maybe he sells it for $8 on eBay because, you know, he thinks that that's the best cover of the week. And maybe a couple dealers get in their little Facebook group and go, oh my God, dude, this Dan Morrow cover is to the moon. Let's buy every copy at 10. And then they sell it for 20 on Whatnot. And then the people who bought it for 20 put it on a YouTube show. And then it's a $40 book. Then it gets to 100. Then it gets to 105, whatever the price is. We're already out at 100% profit. It doesn't help us to buy that book for 80 and make 20 so
I don't
that we
expect,
can prove a point.
but I don't expect you guys, and I don't think anybody expects you guys to buy that back for that. I think that here's the cycle to me, okay, where you say that you're the cycle. Here's how I think most of the people that I talk to, and I could be wrong about this on the retailer level, but again, that's why we have this show, is to pull back the curtain for these guys to tell me I'm wrong, which I'm wrong a lot. But when I think of the cycle in comics right now, okay, I think of it like this. The publishers put out a book. They try to hype the book to get the retailers to buy it. The retailers buy it. They put it on their shelves. Some of them might sell, and some of them might just sit and collect dust. Okay, but the ones that sell, that sell out. Say you get a retailer bought 10 of those cover B variants. They all sell. A year down the line, a collection comes in with those cover Bs where they bought every book in that collection, and they for that collection for a certain price, and they say, okay, I paid so much per book. Now they can resell that book for what it's currently going for and make money off of it. I don't expect them to go, well, that I bought in at that book for $3, and because I can't buy it in for $3 anymore, I'm not even going to mess with it.
Well, no, but I'll tell you,
I'll
tell you right now, if I have that book on my wall at $10, like I think I do, because I had everybody go through Key Collector like a month ago on that big Nightwing collection that I bought. I paid about $2 a piece for all those Nightwing books. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them went for 5, some of them went for 6, some of them went for 10. There's a couple that were at 20. I don't care. If I sell it for 10, I really don't care. And I don't have the time to go race over to the store tomorrow morning and pull it off the wall to put it on eBay. When I get in there, if it's still there and I look at the wall and I can even remember tonight's episode, I'm still happy that I bought it for 2 and I sold it for 10.
Exactly. So I don't
No,
understand.
but the thing is who ends up with the book at the end, right?
Well, it's a constant cycle. It's a constant cycle. It's a constant cycle. When I die, what's going to happen? Just like Bill said, when you die or whenever you give up the collection, it's going back to a buyer and / seller for the most part. You guys, that's the cycle. Somebody takes it into you guys and go, hey, I have all these available for you to buy because either I'm getting out or these are my brother's collection. He died. That's the cycle. I don't understand how that's not.
In collectibles specifically, there's buyer and seller remorse. And somebody brings you a big collection that their pride and joy book that they bought off somewhere with.
They're dead. It doesn't matter though.
I had
No, I'm not talking about a dead person. People still sell their.
No,
books
no, no.
when
I
they're
had a
alive.
guy bring a long box of Whatnot exclusives, autographed and all of that, and I'm like, bro, first of all, I don't have the time to take it to look every one of these up. And he had little stickers on every one of what he paid. $50, $40, $20. And I'm like, I looked up 2 of them and they were going for $15, $10. And I'm like,
What's the
these
Ninja
things,
Funks going for? Because
Right,
I got a
exactly.
long box of all that stuff.
Exactly. So at what point
Well,
are
we all know,
responsible
we
to
know,
buy that?
and anybody that's been in this industry knows that books are hot and books are cold. Like,
Yes.
listen, not every book is
Get
going to
in,
be
get out.
hot. Not every book is going to always sell for more. That's why, you know, we're here to say, hey, these are the books that are selling right now. These are the books that are hot right now. We are the old wizard
Right now,
where
but what we're selling, what is hot, what is selling right now?
Absolute Batman.
Yeah,
Didn't
no,
you
I know,
guys
but
just
what
buy
I'm-
a bunch of? Didn't Jesse just buy a bunch of Absolute
Jesse got a bunch
Batmans
of
to
those.
Yeah.
resell?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
And they're all
I'm
sold
not
out.
talking about
They're
like this is not like there's that book will be good for life.
Will
right?
it?
That's
We thought that
absolutely.
Batman One
years.
Capullo Snyder would be good for life, and now it's a
Yeah,
$25
10 years
book.
tops.
Yeah, I think
But
it's got
that'll-
6 months.
Oh no, so that Batman Capullo right now isn't down, but it is still an iconic story. The first 15 issues.
It's an iconic story, but it doesn't mean that it's worth money. That's the difference.
There is enough of it out there now that people who want it have it. If we had a much bigger, if more people come into the industry and want to read comics, they'll go, what should I read? Oh, you got to fucking read that.
You know what?
Then they got to find it. And then
You know
when
what's
everybody
funny,
through
though, Brian?
collections, that's what makes stuff really go up
A
and
long-
be of value is long
Along
money.
with what you're saying is, though, there is segments of the market, and I told the story here on this show where the girl came in and was asking about so and so and so and so. She was a seller on Whatnot,
Mhm.
you know, and the Whatnot people, and flippers in general, they gravitate towards a certain set of books. Oh, where's your Spawn back issues? Where's your Walking Dead? Where's your Invincible? You know, and they don't look at the stuff in between. So like what Emmett was saying, when you get a Walking Dead collection, yeah, put those at cover price or put those at market price. But what was the name of that book that was super hot? 7 Sons of something by Image. It was 7 something. And it had like 3 or 4 names.
7 of Eternity.
Yes, 7 of Eternity.
Yeah.
7-2
That book was a $40, $50 book on all the shows on eBay. Where's that at now?
Yeah, but again, here's the thing. What do we always say, at least in my channel and in House of Stein and the House of Stein Hot List, we always say that not everything is hot forever. There is peaks and valleys. You have to pick your times when to sell certain things, when, you know, at the highest value.
But that's flippers selling to flippers. If you're a collector and you're a reader and you're a
but what I'm
collector-
getting at is, though, that for the most part, people that, in my opinion, but I could be wrong, and you guys let me know, and chat let me know if you guys buy this way. I think for the most part, the people that are buying from you guys are buying because they're collecting.
I would say so.
I would
They're
say that
reading and becoming collectors.
No, I
yeah.
don't think that they're reading. I don't think that they're reading.
Trust me,
because
they're not
because
buying $5 random Spider-Man issues from me that have a $2 cover price value because they're collecting that. They're doing it because they want to read it, and it's only $5.
I don't know. I bet you they're trying to fill their run. I bet you there's people that going, hey, I want all those
Not at the
McFarlane
prices that I
Spider-Man
charge
books
in my
that have never read the
I
McFarlane
agree
Spider-Man run.
I do have people that are just filling their runs.
Yep.
There are people like that, but a vast majority of those people's also they're in that now because they started reading and collecting. And they
here's
wanna
my
fill the
second
run.
part of that answer. What is the percentage of comic books that are part of your sales? Because, and remember what I said is the majority of people that are buying from you guys are collecting. Okay. And that is what I'm saying. So what is the majority of people that just buy comic books from you? What, like, comic books is what, like 30% of your sales?
Yeah. Mine's probably actually a little less, but I have 57 subscribers, and everyone that's a subscriber that when they come in, they want to talk about last week's books or last month's.
But they're not
issue.
reading every single book. Not all 57 subscribers are reading every single book that they buy from you.
So I had my employees at the new store do a marketing survey.
Every single, I couldn't swear by it, but
Pokemon is our #1 selling product. It represents probably 40% of all sales. Comic books are 8.8 less at 8.8, representing 33% of our sales. Manga is 7.4, representing 25%, and toys represent 6.8%, according to my employees. So to me, it obviously I call myself a comic shop, but actually that new concept store calls itself Cosmic Pop Retro. It's a whole different new concept. But the customers tell me where to put the money. The customers tell me to sell Pokemon, Magic, manga, and toys.
Yep. Yeah.
So
The only thing I want to know.
That's where I direct.
Yep. I want to know. I want to ensure our business is successful. So I'm not looking at that percentage. What I'm looking for is how many items is a person purchasing at the store. So if I get a person who's buying a manga or an anime, let's just say an anime book or a manga, it doesn't matter, but they're also buying a shirt, a sock, and some Pokemon cards, that's a win. What we want to do is we want to diversify our customers so when they do get to the counter, they have a multitude of genres, and we haven't created that one person who just thinks they're just going to buy comics. You know, we're a high success rate in comics. We're over 60% every week. But that also includes my live stream sales.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
That's going to throw it off.
Yeah, which we're selling what? An
I was about to say,
show,
because I was about to side eye you big time, because I heard you say a few of the other week that you think about 30% of the time people's bringing up a comic book and the rest is
exactly.
Is
it's 30%, but once you add the 300 books we sell per show, then that percentage changes.
Yeah.
And so there should not be a difference between a consumer buying live stream versus a consumer in your store. They should get the same treatment.
Well, you don't sell the same items on your live stream that you have available in your store all the time.
Well, we do, because what we do is we have a cycle. So if I put something up on a display and after 7 days it's still here and I've got it for $40 and I can get $40 online, that I'm going to get it sold. Right? We have to turn our product so when someone walks in, they're not seeing the same.
But you just told me that it would weigh everything back to comics if you brought comics in if you brought the sales in from your live sales. Sure. So that means that you're selling mainly comics on your live sales.
I only sell comics, pops, and some anime or some manga. So what I then get to is now what I should do is I should diversify on my live streams and start selling Pokemon cards and other things as well. So when we look at our success patterns, we say, wow, look at all these things we can sell now to make our shows better, still sell our 200 to 300 books per show. Now we're going to add X, Y, Z.
Right.
And that's how you pivot, right?
The other thing is on the hot books is that, okay, right now, Dan Mora, Nightwing is hot. And I do have several people who've come in and ask for
Nightwing back issues.
Nightwing back issues, and if I have any variants. And the thing is that should that change my buying habits going forward, they're not subscribers. They're people coming in and going, hey, do you have this? Do you have that? If I buy the next time around, I buy 10 of the B cover that I never will sell. Have this,
but it's like those Hawaiian shirt guys. You know, the Hawaiian shirt guy we shit on a couple weeks ago. They're the kind of guys that will come into your store looking for that Dan Morrow and walk out and turn and not look at a single other thing than what the hottest book is this week. That's not a customer. That's a flipper looking to capitalize off you.
Yeah, which
Now
I
you
don't
treat
care.
them.
I
Now
have
treat
my
them.
price.
Yeah, treat them good. Treat them good. You know, if they don't buy anything and they're only there to get the hottest book that hit a top 10 list, then you can't cater to that because they're only going to buy from you if you have the hottest book at $10 like I might have.
But I'm saying that like next month's B cover, this is that cash flow
Right.
from week to week.
Right.
If you're doing that and then you're like, oh man, the last two.
But let me
Nightwings-
just tell you, I bought 10 each of the Mark Spears triptych absolutes of the foil.
Yeah.
And I bought 10 each of the regular. And I sold out of all the regulars because they were, you know, a cheaper price. And I sold out of all the foil Batmans. And I sold out of, I think, most of the Supermans. Wonder Woman was selling the least. I just took those down to Toledo to restock what I sold out there. I took the last ones from Monroe and moved them down to Toledo. I just sold my last Wonder Woman. Different markets, different products.
Sure.
But I bought 20 copies of each of those because I'm like, well, I sell 20 Mark Spears monsters. Well, the Mark Spears fans were not there for the Batman as hard as they were for the monsters.
Yep. Fandom.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right.
Fandom.
Yeah.
That's fandom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
The one thing I want to bring up, someone that talked about getting value at auctions when I do my sales. I start off everything at what I need to get. I do not do these $1.
Neither
$2.
do I. I don't like
Yeah.
that. I people.
That's
But if you like it, that's
crazy.
fine. But to me, it's crazy. It's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You should start an auction exactly what you need to get. And if you do it the other way, fine. I don't really care because you're not selling my books, but I always get what I need to get.
So far, my eBay Live strategy is I put $100 book on there. When the auction comes up, I just say, all right, that's $100 book started at 50. And I started at half of what it's going for.
Yep.
And sometimes it goes for 75. Sometimes it goes for 105. Sometimes it goes for 51. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. At the end of the day, Sky Jaguar man, I provide great comic book therapy for all your comic book needs. So if you want to call me a flipper, don't care.
Flipper's not a bad word. I don't think flipper's a bad word.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
We do.
Anybody
there's
that
not a
buys
comic
and
book-
sell that buys things for cheap and sells them for more flips stuff, right?
Exactly. So just dispel that. Before we go, we should talk about the Diamond news. I don't know if you've read that yet.
Yeah, I was hoping we just have a diamond-free week.
Well,
Yeah, but I want to make a point about it because this is exactly what we said, that there would be no pardon me, there would be no money left for anybody else when the BK7 finalized.
Yep.
There is no money left.
yeah.
This is crazy how many people.
Not only are they getting nothing, but they're also getting all of their shit sold at liquidation for someone else's benefit.
Yep. Exactly.
Hmm.
So this is how it ends, the way we said at the beginning. And it's a shame.
I'm not shocked by this after following
I
it for
think
the last 6 months. I'm not shocked by this. I think that there was a point, I can't remember exactly when it was, but I told these guys, I said, it was after a show one time, and I said, from now on, I think everything that happened with this is all foobar. There's fuckery afoot. There is stuff that was planned out behind the scenes. They knew that they weren't going to pay anybody. They did things this way to get around it, and there was fuckery going on. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
And that was probably 3 or 4 months ago even
Jesse and I told every single one of these people that just got fucked, go over, get your inventory now, and everybody just sat on their hands, and this is how they got repaid.
Yeah.
Alva Flash says streamers now pump modern books for clicks and FOMO while acting like market experts. You're watching the wrong streamers, man.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey,
all right.
I just want to. I know we're leaving.
No, we're not leaving.
I talked about.
We're not leaving.
Okay. Well,
There's
I'm gonna
something
go
we have
pee
to
after I
talk
do
about.
this. Uh-oh, what do we have to talk about?
100 episodes, ladies and gentlemen, of the Industry of Comics show. This show started 2 years ago with this episode right here, the very first episode of the Industry of Comics that unfortunately Dennis wasn't on yet, but
I was busy that week.
San Diego Comic-Con talking with this guy. Look at Big Clutch with the hair.
Yeah.
Matt Nelson, Jesse. This is this is the first Industry of Comics show. It was not it was edited. I edited it. I put all kinds of stuff in, to it. The show has completely changed, and you can see
many
all
people
our
watched that
episodes
episode?
here. It was this episode right here where Dennis came in on episode 3, and this was an excellent episode.
That was the night. That was the night I went to the Porno for Pyros concert, and I was running late, and I popped in after like 15 minutes.
Yeah, this was a really interesting show. You can see me and Jesse here, and here's Dennis jumping on. This was the third
our
First time
episode.
you guys were
Yeah.
trashing Comics Pro.
Yeah. The third episode of the show, and it just continued from there. We had great shows. This right here
Five
was
fire.
this was the famous
Bottom feeders episode.
yeah, the Dennis calling people bottom feeders. Shout out to James Welch and Sean Hudachko. I talked to James at Sorenfest, and of course, you guys are going to start seeing Sean show up more on this show in the future. But this was when they first both joined. She jumped on the show for the first time, and it's kind of funny. A year ago, we had James on the show, and I saw him at Sorenfest this weekend.
2 years ago.
Then we continued. We had so many great people on this show. Dirk Manning, Brian Polito was on this episode. Rob Liefeld, that's a big show. Having Rob Liefeld on for episode 7 of the Industry of Comics show, that was pretty amazing. A bucket list moment, at least for me. I know these guys were already friends with them, and it was a lot of fun to have Rob come on the channel. It continued. This was a big show. You remember this, Dennis? This was Jesse was unable to make the show.
Yeah.
Ed Piskor
That
had
was a
just.
special Thursday night episode.
This was a special. No, this wasn't the special Thursday night episode.
No.
This was the night that after Ed had killed himself. Unfortunately. And we talked about it, and the special Thursday night episode was where we brought Ethan Van Sciver on to talk about cancel culture and the whole thing, which was
Isn't that the your show
It
on your
is.
entire channel?
for views, for single views, for a number one show, for a single show, this is it. Almost 6,000 views on the cancel culture episode. It continued. And we just continued from there. I mean, just slugging along. Murat Michaels, Tom Hutchinson, Comic Shop Survival. Nick from Key Collector has been on multiple shows. He's one of the people, him, Ross Ritchie, Nick Barucci, Brian Polito, that have been on the show the most. So shout out to Nick, Key Collector. That's the first time he came on, episode 11. Josh Blaylock's been on the show a couple of times. This is the great John Tyler Christopher episode, which was so much fun. I love that thumbnail.
God, I forgot. We did have Gary on.
Yeah.
Gary's awesome.
Beekler from Nerdrotic was on to talk about retailer redemption, and go check out his new book, which he talks all about it. But this was before the book came out. That was a lot of fun.
Way before.
Dan Mendoza joining us. That was a fun episode. But more than this, we had Darren Davis on for the first time on this episode.
That was fire.
Yeah. Ross Rucci joined us with Nick being on the same show. So we had Ross and Nick on the same show, not together, but one after each other. Right. This was the Ben Dunn and Tony Fleeks show which was crazy. Brian Haberlin, Drew and Clutch. We got Drew to come on camera on a show for the first time ever, which was awesome. Bill McKay. I wish Bill McKay was at Sorenfest this weekend. I didn't see him there, so that would have been awesome. Alan Stewart at Hall of Heroes and Ryan Kincaid. That was kind of cool. Here's another Nick from Key Collector show. I mean, it continues. So 100 episodes. You'll see Brian Polito again. Our San Diego recaps. Joe Benitez. A lot of great shows. What you guys have any shows that you guys really look back at and go, man, that was a great show?
You know, one of my favorite episodes was and I don't think it was an Industry of Comics episode, but it might have been. I'm not for sure. But remember when we did the 50 years of Brian Pulido collecting comics?
That was the Industry of
episode?
Comics, yeah, with Billy Tucci.
Was that an Industry?
Yeah.
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 But we had Paul Miotti on, and
Yep.
we had Tucci on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that because it was just kind of like let's dig in and get this guy's backstory, you know?
Mm-hmm. Sarah Frazetta was a great episode too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mama.
All these are before me.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait,
It's
but
all
then I
gone
think our
downhill
viewership,
since.
Yeah, I
our
know.
viewership went up after you.
Yeah.
That was a good episode when we brought George on for the second time.
Yeah.
This George was well, one of the biggest. Another John Tyler Christopher, John Lehman. We got to get John on again. Big news with John.
He was awesome. He was
yeah,
awesome.
John and Chew fans, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Man, a lot of good shows here. Make sure you guys go
No,
check it
then a year ago. Thank you, Diamond, for giving us content for a year.
out. Yep.
Yeah.
The Future of Diamond 1 year ago. And that just continued. Look at this. All Diamond bankruptcy stuff.
No, it's all because Emmett joined the show, Brian. Come on. Put credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
So, a lot of good stuff. I love this one.
There's
Is
been
Rob
a
Wright?
lot of good shows, man. I don't think
Yeah.
I could pick one. I mean,
Yeah, I
So many good
think to
ones.
be able to have over 70 guests that are relevant on a show, I think is a big achievement for an industry that doesn't help you at all get any of these guests.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
This is literally the three of us picking up a phone and calling our friends when they're relevant to a topic of the day, or we see they have a new announcement that we want to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's one of the big things. But I think
Oh, go back up. Live from Japan.
That was a good episode.
Hey, that was me.
yeah, I did like. I think my favorite episode is the Dan Mendoza show, where Dennis asked, "Who did Dan know first?" I think that was my favorite one.
By the way, you guys, there is an eternal drinking game for a lot of you guys, and there are a lot of drinking game moments between Jesse and Dennis throughout the episodes, and them always trying to one up each other is one of the main drinking game episode moments over the last couple of years.
Exactly.
I have the most drinking cues than Jesse.
This was
Oh, by far.
remember this was
He
a
just
very
he just
controversial
one-upped you
episode right
about the
here.
drinking.
Yeah, right. Death
Yeah.
by 1,000 Covers. This is the Bird City episode
Yeah.
that unfortunately kind of ended my relationship for the most part with Bird City, which is a bummer. But that was
But
a
it did
big
get
controversial
3.7
episode.
3,700 views. So
3,700 views. Yeah. Let's see here. What else do we got? Heidi McDonald, having Heidi on, and Rich.
Yep.
We have Rich and Heidi on.
yeah,
within
go
a
up
couple
2
months of each other.
episodes. Or yeah, what was?
And then this was a great episode, having Stephen Fuentes from Most Wanted Comics and Corpus Christi, a great up and coming brick and mortar store owner that we have a lot of respect for, and I think the future is very bright. And it's the type of, in my opinion, the type of retailer that I would love to champion. This is a perfect example of that type of retailer right here, Stephen Fuentes and Most Wanted Comics and Corpus Christi. This is a big one. Jesse James' grand opening in DeLand, where he had Mark show up to do a signing, which was super cool.
Dennis came out as well. So.
Yeah. Let's see here. I love that thumbnail with Superman sitting on the shitter, asking if Superman can save the comic industry. I guess not. We'll see.
Yeah. San
Diego, of course, again. Oh, the Macroverse Kickstarter debacle. That was very interesting.
Ooh.
And they came on, and we got to give Eben credit over at the Macroverse. He came on and and we had a really great conversation, and I think we all left that episode thinking, well, okay, they made mistakes, but you know, we're going to give them the chance to kind of make up for it, and we'll see what they do in the future if they've learned from some of the mistakes maybe they made on that first you know, pre-code horror Kickstarter.
I think they were on Comic Tom not too long ago.
Eben might have been, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but then that's the infamous one right there, the Darren Davis Part 2.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a crazy one.
That was that was hot.
Yeah. That was interesting. The third or fourth time Nick's been on from Key Collector. Of course, Philip Sablik, that's the second or third time Philip's been on.
Yep.
They're starting to put out Ignition is really,
dude. Well, we didn't even talk. Everybody is talking about Beauty right now.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
I knew that was going to hit hard. It was one of our best-selling indies when it was in my stores.
Yeah. Here's Dennis Cosmic Pop Retro grand opening.
Yeah,
which was very cool.
There.
This is us putting out the lost interview right here.
Because that's what I wanted to show. So how many months ago was that? Go up one more. No, up one more.
This one?
The Spider-Man Set Mania was 4 months ago, and it took me 4 months to pull the Soul Stone.
Oh, wait, hold on. Look at that.
I just pulled one.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, we bought ours.
What are they selling for right now on the secondary?
Only like 60 or 75 bucks, but that's a huge dip right now.
I have the special art. Mine's 1,200.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. More industry diamond stuff. NYCC 2025.
What was the one that had 400 views? What the hell was that?
Oh, this is just the interview where I cut the interview.
Okay. I'm like, where the hell because everybody watched it the first time.
Well,
good job, chat.
Yeah. Well, we had to take it down. You remember, you guys, we had to take down this interview. So for this episode, we EFAP'd that one. We EFAP'd it, and then I put it out just by itself so people could just see the interview.
Right.
So this is NYCC 2025, us coming back from New York. Local comic shop day. Fall of Funko.
Oh, where do prices come from was when you got canned, and we had to do it on House of Stein, and then you put it back over after it opened.
Yeah, it had probably close to 1,500 views over there, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 100 episodes, you guys, of the industry of comics, and
I'd rather have 200 dedicated viewers, Brian, but I'll accept the 1,500 to 2,000 that watch us every week.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and whatever.
Let's talk about pickups. Dennis showed us his first pickups. Do you have any more, Dennis? Is that it?
God, I don't even remember, dude. I bought a bunch of Pokemon. I bought so much crap. Just follow me on Instagram. You'll see all the crap up. Oh, I did break a record though this week. Did you see that?
I think you sold what was it? A big book.
Hulk 180 7.0 PSA normally goes for $650 in a CGC. I got $10.50 for it on PSA on eBay.
Nice. Wow. I have a question. Did you ever sell your 181 Mark Jewelers?
Nope, because I've got to figure out. I got to get it cleaned and pressed, and then I want PSA to do it because I think it'll be the first ever PSA Mark Jeweler.
Well,
181.
Well, I know somebody. Shout out to my boy Billy over at Economics and Comics, who is searching for. He has a Mark Jewelers collection that he's been putting together that's his main collecting thing.
Oh,
and he needs a 180 and 181. So I told him that I would let you know.
My 180 is not a Mark Jeweler. That's actually the ironic.
Oh.
Because the 180 is a regular and the 181 is a Mark Jeweler. So he bought those at two different places.
All right. Well, I'll let Billy know that you still have the 181 if he wants to talk to you about it. All right.
And I have about 200 other.
Oh, well, that's the other thing. I'll let them know that you have a bunch of
Yeah.
others. Yeah. All right. Jesse, you got pickups?
Okay. So I got some cool stuff. I got a WWE Superstar Secret Raw, the Hulk Hogan variant.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I got
I never even
that.
heard of that book.
Yeah,
That's
I
fun.
got today. I got in X-Men 2099 gold foil,
Oh, I haven't seen the gold foils either.
and
In a
then
long
I
time.
got, and then I did not know this existed. Magneto Zero gold.
Oh,
foil.
nice.
Yeah.
Were
did
those
not know that.
wizard? Were those
No.
wizard cinemaways?
No.
Nope.
They had to be retail incentives then.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, I don't think they're retail incentives.
How did you get them?
I think that. Oh, let me see here. Go ahead, Jesse.
And then I did pick up this, which is kind of cool. So this is Wizard, but it has the Pokemon
on the back.
Yeah, on the back. So that was kind of cool. Has a card there as well. So that was cool. And then my big pickup, which when I bought this, I wasn't even then price it. I was like, no one's gonna want that.
That's incredible. What a find.
Yeah.
Yep. So I bought this at Goodwill for $10. It's just an amazing piece. The last one sold for $500. We're probably gonna keep this. This is one of those cool items I might keep. Well, until someone says, "Hey, what's that up on the wall?" But that's my pickups. Always be looking, folks. There's always stuff out there, and if you haven't seen it, that doesn't mean that you should walk away from it.
Right.
Dennis, this is the book right here, Magneto: The Twisting of a Soul, #0. It came out in January of '93, and I'm trying to find more information on how you got.
Yeah, Sky
gold.
Jaguar says he thinks it's Dynamic Forces,
Okay.
which does jibe a little bit.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of people making those kind of variants. There was that Ultimate Comics and
awesome or Ultimate something entertainment.
Unlimited.
Yep.
Something American Entertainment.
Yep. There was a lot of people who were doing that game at that time.
Yeah.
But much like Emmett likes to talk about, it was a very unsustainable game to play as the market was crashing.
Yeah. All right, Emmett, you got any pickups?
I don't have anything with me. I picked up a bunch of Dungeons and Dragon books. You know, if you don't know, if you get a Deities and Demigods
First edition,
it'll have Cthulhu in it. That'll get you about $200. The one that came in didn't have it, so it was a second print. But there was some.
Does it strike you as crazy that has been a $100 or $200 book for over 30 to 40 years?
Oh,
but it's never gone. It's never gone 1,000.
Right. No, it's.
Yeah.
Everybody that's in it. I mean, a lot of the new D&D players don't want any of the old books. It's really the old farts who like it's nostalgia. But what I did get, which was really cool, was the original Dungeon Master screen. There was a screen and then a source screen. The two screens came together. They get like $200 for the pair. Mine has a stain. I'll probably get a 125, 150 for it. But
no, I'm not trying to step all over your thing, but when we always talk backstage in our little chats that there's occasionally things that never come your way again.
Right.
I got one of those things, and it was a D&D thing. It was a pad of notebook paper, and I want to say it was like 100 sheets bound. And it was the original D&D character sheets that they took to a convention, and they would peel you off a sheet.
Yep.
And I've never seen a pad of those.
They got used.
I asked a ridiculously high price, and when the right customer came along, they were just like, "Oh, never seen that." Cha-ching. And I was just like, "No haggle? What? I want that. I wanted to keep that. I put a ridiculously high price on it for that reason." And this guy just like, "Nope, it's mine." I was like, "Okay."
I got a few short boxes of dollar books and like nothing super exciting. But business has been fantastic.
Yep.
I can never get enough product.
I also got this.
I don't know that.
Yep.
Is that a manga?
Yeah, it's a VHS.
Okay.
Yeah. The last copy sold for 100.
What is it?
It's a BAO. I guess it's just anime.
Does anybody know what this is?
It's a Japanese anime.
Another perfect example is we know how much it sells for, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Don't know what it is. And then the other thing, I forgot I got this. This is the Keanu Reeves collection.
Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah. And it's every
movie he's ever been in.
He ever did. I mean, this is just an awesome set.
Yeah. My DVD sales are on fire.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. I will tell you that it is crazy what we do in DVDs and Blu-rays. Now we're specific driven as well. It's not like we put every single DVD we get in. Right. We take a lot and donate the stuff we know we don't sell or isn't in the genre of the store. But yeah, that is a great business for us.
Mr. Untold Comics says, does anyone know if Marvel has reprinted Ultimate Endgame blind bags, as I have replacement copies coming in and I don't want them if they're the same stock? They have not reprinted them as far as I know. And
no, but there is a shitload left somewhere because everybody's getting replacements almost.
Yes.
Yep.
And nobody is talking about the print run because we don't know how many they printed. And that's why they haven't been able to come up with the ratio to pull a sketch.
Yep.
It's a classic anime.
I wanted to talk about one thing. And 2 weeks ago, we were talking about gold and silver, and somebody in the chat was like, "Oh, do you think I should buy it now?" And all of us said, "No, this is too late to buy it."
Yep.
Because it's that volatile.
It just dropped to 80, but if it drops to 60, I'd buy it.
Well, shut up. Don't give advice like that. But I did say, go where everyone else is not buying. And I said, take a look at copper. This week, I have watched 5 different reels about how copper has been climbing and will keep climbing. And the elimination of the penny is going to make that keep going up. Copper is the next thing. And gold and silver will rebound, in my opinion, but don't follow our advice on that. Do your own research.
Opinions.
That being said,
but I did say copper. I did say look at copper.
We are about to hit 4 hours, and I know these guys got to pee just like me because they're old. And Mark Spears is going to join us in the background.
I will be on eBay Live here in 5 minutes, folks.
All right, Mark, I sent you the link.
Have a good show, Jesse.
Come jump in. We'll see you backstage. Adios, you guys.